Hello guys, welcome to Fictional Vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto was the vampire progenitor and king of the night. Naruto x Krul Tepes x Seras Victoria, Seraph of the End/Hellsing. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, Awakening of the Progenitor King. The scent of ancient paper and cherry blossoms permeated Professor Uzumaki's office at Tokyo University. Rain pattered against century-old windows as he traced weathered fingertips over a scroll so delicate it might have crumbled beneath less experienced hands. Shadows danced across his eternally youthful features, whisker marks barely visible in the dim light, cerulean eyes reflecting wisdom far beyond the 30 years he claimed. "You're working late again, Professor." Naruto didn't look up. He'd sensed Yujito's approach long before she spoke, the unique chakra signature she'd carried for nearly 5 centuries now, masked from others but clear as sunlight to him. "Some habits persist beyond time itself," he murmured, carefully rolling the scroll. "What brings my supposed niece to campus at midnight?" Yujito leaned against the doorframe, her blonde hair cascading over a leather jacket. To casual observers, she appeared 25, a relative helping the handsome young history professor navigate Japanese society. Only Naruto saw the former Jinchuriki of Matatabi, the woman who died and been reborn through his blood. The Hellsing organization deployed agents to Shibuya. 3 more disappearances last night. She crossed her arms, cat-like eyes narrowing. "They're getting bolder, Naruto. The old agreements are fracturing." He finally looked up, moonlight illuminating features that hadn't aged since that final battle against Kagaya. "And the seals? Weakening. The one in Aokigahara forest pulsed last night, the strongest fluctuation yet." Naruto closed his eyes briefly. For centuries, he'd maintained the ancient seals containing entities that made the tailed beasts seem benevolent by comparison. Beings that had existed before chakra, before shinobi, before the sage of 6 paths himself. The same entities that had shown him what he would become, when the fusion of Uzumaki vitality, sage chakra, and tailed beast power had transformed him into something unprecedented. The first true vampire. The progenitor. "The convergence approaches earlier than expected," he said, standing with fluid grace that betrayed inhuman origins. "The stars align as they did when Hagoromo walked the earth. Will you continue hiding?" Yujito challenged, the only one who dared speak to him thus. "You've concealed your nature for centuries while others claimed the title of vampire nobility. Your progeny have forgotten their creator." Naruto moved to the window, gazing at Tokyo's gleaming skyline. How different from the shinobi villages of old, yet human nature remained unchanged, still seeking power, still fearing the unknown. "I didn't create them to rule them, Yujito. I offered salvation to dying warriors, companions who deserved another chance." His reflection showed only emptiness where he stood, a habit of concealment rather than vampiric limitation. "The fragmentation of vampire society was inevitable once I withdrew. And now the third progenitor Krul Tepes claims dominion over Eastern Asia," Yujito countered. "She's arriving in Tokyo tomorrow. Intelligence suggests she seeks something ancient buried beneath the city." A humorless smile touched Naruto's lips. "She seeks me, whether she knows it or not. The blood calls to blood, especially now." "And Hellsing's agents?" "The Vatican Section 13 has also mobilized." "Humans with dangerous knowledge," Naruto replied, reaching for his coat, a modernized version of the sage cloak he'd once worn. "We'll observe tonight's hunt. The Hellsing operative may prove interesting." Yujito's lips curled into a knowing smile. "She's impressive, I'll admit. Not many can wield shadow arms with such precision. A fledgling vampire who clings to humanity." Something softened in Naruto's expression. "Reminds me of someone I knew long ago." "Yourself?" Yujito asked. "Perhaps." Naruto extinguished the office light with a gesture. Or perhaps someone else who refused to become a monster despite carrying one inside. As they vanished from the university, moving faster than human eyes could track, neither noticed the crimson eyes watching from across the courtyard, nor the small figure with flowing pink hair who whispered into the night, "Found you." Seras Victoria hated Tokyo missions. Target moving northeast through Kabukicho, she reported into her communication device, English accent crisp despite her frustration. Appears to be Class C vampire, possibly recent conversion. Confirmed before engagement, came the response from Hellsing Command. Local authorities report 7 missing persons in that district this week. Rain slicked her blonde hair against her forehead as she leapt between rooftops, the weight of her massive Harkonnen cannon negligible with her vampiric strength. 5 years since Alucard had transformed her from dying police officer to creature of the night, and still these hunts left her feeling hollow. The vampire below moved erratically, dragging a struggling victim into an alley. Unlike the calculating millennium vampires she'd fought in London, these Japanese variants seemed feral, driven by bloodlust rather than ideology. Their sudden emergence puzzled Hellsing intelligence. Japan had historically low vampire activity. Until 3 months ago. Seras dropped silently behind the predator, her shadow arm extending like liquid darkness. Hellsing organization, she announced, protocol requiring identification before execution. Release the human. The vampire spun, revealing a once handsome face now twisted with hunger. Blood dripped from elongated fangs, eyes crimson with feeding frenzy. The victim, a young woman, slumped unconscious against the alley wall. Foreign blood, the vampire hissed in accented English. Rich with power. You serve the human organization. Last warning, Seras replied, her arm transforming into a serrated edge. Unlike her master Alucard, she preferred clean kills over prolonged combat. The vampire laughed, then moved with unexpected speed, flesh rippling as it transformed into something more bestial. The ancient blood awakens. We feel it. Soon the progenitor will rise, and your human masters will kneel. Seras barely dodged the attack, confusion momentarily distracting her. This wasn't standard vampire behavior or rhetoric. The creature fought with desperation rather than hunger, as though driven by something beyond bloodlust. Her momentary hesitation cost her. The vampire's claws raked across her torso, tearing through her Hellsing uniform and drawing blood. Seras hissed, her vampiric instincts surging as her eyes blazed crimson. Fine, she growled. We'll do this the hard way. Her shadow arm exploded outward, forming countless tendrils that pierced the vampire from multiple angles. But instead of disintegrating as expected, the creature began laughing manically even as its body was shredded. Too late, it gurgled. The seal breaks tonight. Blood calls to blood. The fox emerges from his den. With disturbing deliberation, the vampire forced itself forward along the shadow tendrils, impaling itself further to reach Seras. Its blood, unnatural and acrid, spattered across her face. He comes, it whispered, close enough now that she could smell its putrid breath. The one who danced with the moon goddess. The sage who became night itself. Before Seras could respond, the vampire's body suddenly erupted in black flames, flames she hadn't created. The creature screamed as it burned, consumed in seconds and leaving nothing but ash that scattered in the rain-soaked alley. What the bloody hell? Seras whispered, wiping blood from her face. Amaterasu, came a voice from above. Or at least, a variation of it. Seras spun, shadow arm extending defensively as she located the speaker. A man perched on the fire escape above, rain seeming to curve around rather than touch him. Blonde hair, striking blue eyes, and curious whisker-like marks on his cheeks. Beside him stood a blonde woman with calculating eyes that reflected the streetlight like a cat's. I'd ask who you are, Seras said cautiously, but I'm more interested in what just happened. That vampire mentioned a seal breaking. The man jumped down, landing with impossible lightness. Despite her vampiric strength and combat experience, Seras felt a primal instinct to retreat, a sensation she'd experienced only in Alucard's presence. Seras Victoria of the Hellsing organization, he said, her name flowing from his lips with perfect pronunciation. You're far from London. And you know too much for a random bystander, she countered, maintaining combat stance. Are you responsible for the vampire increase in Tokyo? The blonde woman made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a scoff. Hardly. We're more concerned with who is. The man approached the unconscious victim, kneeling beside her. With gentle movements that contradicted the power Seras sensed within him, he checked the woman's pulse. She'll live, he said, placing his hand over a wound on her neck. A soft golden glow emanated from his palm, and to Seras's astonishment, the wound closed completely. No memory of this, though. Better that way. What are you? Seras demanded, fascination overriding caution. He stood, fixing her with eyes that suddenly flashed red, not the crimson of vampires but something more ancient, with concentric circles rippling outward from the pupil. Someone who's avoided questions like that for a very long time, Miss Victoria. The eyes returned to blue. But circumstances change. The seal in Aokigahara breaks tonight, and what emerges will make these fledgling vampires seem like mosquitoes. We should go, the woman urged. I sense more approaching. The Hellsing operative comes with us, the man replied. She deserves answers, especially with what's coming. Seras tensed. I'm not going anywhere without. Your organization is currently dealing with similar emergencies in 5 other Tokyo locations, he interrupted. Coordinated attacks to divide your forces. This is merely the prelude, Seras Victoria. Something in his tone, not condescension but ancient certainty, gave her pause. Her communication device crackled with urgent reports confirming his claim. Who are you? She asked again, more softly. A sad smile crossed his face. Once, I was Naruto Uzumaki, child of prophecy. Now. He gestured vaguely. History professor with unusual hobbies. If you want to save lives tonight, including your Hellsing colleagues, you'll come with us to Aokigahara. Seras hesitated, years of Hellsing training warring with instinct. Finally, she nodded. Lead the way, Professor. But if this is a trap, you'll what? The blonde woman interrupted, her voice silky but dangerous. Dispatch us like that fledgling? I've stalked shadows since before your great-grandmother was born, little lion. Yujito, Naruto chided gently. She's right to be cautious. Trust is earned. He turned to Seras. We'll take the rooftops. Can you keep pace? In answer, Seras leapt upward, shadow arm propelling her to the building's roof. Try to keep up, Professor. For the first time, genuine amusement lit Naruto's features, making him appear suddenly younger, more human. I haven't had to try in a very long time. He vanished in a yellow flash, reappearing on the rooftop before Seras even registered movement. Yujito followed with fluid, predatory grace. As they raced toward Aokigahara Forest, the infamous Suicide Forest, at Mount Fuji's base, Seras couldn't shake the feeling that tonight would change everything she thought she knew about the creatures of the night. Krul Tepes did not appreciate disobedience. The vampire noble knelt before her, forehead pressed against the polished marble of the Tokyo high-rise she'd claimed as temporary court. His fear permeated the air, delicious but irritating, given the circumstances. Explain, she commanded, voice deceptively childlike from her petite form. You were instructed to observe, not provoke the Hellsing agent. Forgive me, third progenitor, the noble vampire pleaded. The fledgling we created escaped containment. It encountered the Hellsing operative before we could retrieve it. Krul's crimson eyes narrowed as she lounged on her improvised throne. After centuries ruling the vampire kingdom in Japan, her patience for incompetence had worn thin. Tokyo hummed beneath her, millions of heartbeats, a symphony of blood and life she controlled with meticulous precision. Until recently. And the surge we detected, she asked. The ancient power awakening in the university district. The noble hesitated. Gone before we could investigate. But the resonance was unprecedented. Some of the younger vampires became frenzied merely sensing it. Krul tapped perfectly manicured nails against the throne's armrest. For millennia, vampire lore spoke of a progenitor king, the first of their kind, whose blood ran in the veins of all true vampires. Most considered it myth, religious nonsense to explain their existence. Krul knew better. The evidence existed in fragments, ancient scrolls describing a golden warrior who walked through history's shadows, whispers of a sage with the power to create or destroy worlds. The blood tablets that sustained modern vampires were but pale imitations of what his blood could offer. The Aokigahara seal, she asked. Failing rapidly, my queen. Our agents report unusual activity, humans and others, converging on the forest. Krul rose, her elaborate dress rustling. Despite her appearance, a beautiful preteen girl with flowing pink hair, her presence filled the room with palpable authority. Prepare my escort, she ordered. We depart immediately. But Lady Krul, the sun, will not rise for hours. She fixed him with a look that had broken stronger vampires. Unless you suggest I fear the dark, Weskier. The noble vampire bowed lower. Never, my queen. Good. She moved to the panoramic window, gazing toward Mount Fuji's distant silhouette. Because I intend to meet this ancient power personally. If the legends are true, the balance of our world changes tonight. As her court scrambled to prepare, Krul smiled. 5 centuries of rule had taught her to recognize opportunity. If the progenitor king truly walked Tokyo's streets, she would either ally with this living legend, or eliminate the threat to her dominion. Either way, the vampire world would never be the same. Aokigahara Forest loomed before them, an impenetrable mass of twisted trees and volcanic rock. Even without its reputation as Japan's suicide forest, the place would feel wrong to sensitive souls. Centuries of suffering had soaked into the very soil. Naruto stopped at the forest's edge, Yujito and Seras flanking him. The rain had ceased, leaving an oppressive stillness pierced only by distant animal cries that sounded oddly distorted. The Japanese government closed the forest to visitors last week, Seras noted. Officially for ecological assessment. A convenient excuse, Naruto replied, eyes shifting to sage mode, the orange pigmentation around his eyes contrasting with now toad-like pupils. But necessary. What sleeps beneath cannot be explained by science or logic. Seras studied him, professional assessment mixing with personal curiosity. You're not a vampire, at least not like any I've encountered. But you're not human either. Few things are only one thing, Miss Victoria. Naruto placed his palm against a gnarled tree, chakra pulsing outward to sense the forest's condition. Including yourself. Your blood sings with potential you haven't embraced. Not all of us consider becoming monsters in evolution, she countered. Yujito made that distinctive scoffing sound again. Says the woman who transforms her arm into living shadow. Before Seras could respond, Naruto raised his hand for silence. Company approaching. Multiple signatures, vampires, but different bloodlines. The Tepes faction moves earlier than expected. Should we conceal ourselves? Yujito asked, already fading into the shadows with practiced ease. Naruto considered, then shook his head. No. It's time for introductions. He turned to Seras. Whatever happens, stay close. Your Hellsing training won't prepare you for what comes next. Seras bristled. I've faced Nazi vampires, werewolves, and watched London burn. Don't underestimate, it's not about capability, Naruto interrupted gently. It's about context. You fight creatures of the night without understanding their origins. Tonight, history emerges from myth. Before she could question further, the forest parted as though commanded. A procession emerged from the darkness, elegant vampires in formal attire surrounding a diminutive figure who radiated authority despite her small stature. Krul Tepes walked with the confidence of millennia, pink hair floating around her like a crown. Despite her childlike appearance, her eyes held ancient calculation as they fixed on Naruto. "Professor Uzumaki," she greeted, voice musical yet commanding. "Your university credentials are impressive for someone who supposedly arrived in Japan only 7 years ago." Naruto smiled faintly. "I've found academia welcomes those who can discuss the Heian period as though they lived it. An interesting specialty for a historian." Krul's eyes flicked to Seras. "Consorting with Hellsing now? I wouldn't have predicted that alliance." "I don't form alliances, Lady Tepes. Merely convergences of interest." Krul circled them, her escort maintaining respectful distance. "Your interest in Aokigahara coincides with ancient power stirring beneath. Curious timing." "Perhaps I'm simply a concerned citizen," Naruto offered. "The seal weakens. What sleeps will wake hungry after millennia. And you know this how?" Krul stopped, her patience visibly thinning. "Let's abandon pretense, Professor. You're neither human nor common vampire. Your blood signature echoes through my entire court, impossible unless." Naruto met her gaze directly, allowing his chakra to pulse outward, not aggressively, but with deliberate presence. The vampire nobles recoiled as one, instinctively recognizing something primal in his energy. "Unless I'm something older," he finished for her. "Something original." Krul's eyes widened fractionally, the only indication of surprise she allowed herself. "The Progenitor King is myth. Religious comfort for lesser vampires seeking meaning. All myths contain truth, Lady Tepes. Even yours." The forest trembled suddenly, a deep, subsonic vibration that rattled teeth and disturbed wildlife into frenzied motion. The ground cracked several meters away, sulfurous steam hissing upward. "It begins," Yujito said unnecessarily, her eyes shifting to reflect Matatabi's influence, slitted and glowing. "What exactly begins?" Seras demanded, Harkonnen cannon materializing from her shadow arm. "What's beneath this forest?" Naruto's expression darkened. "Something the Sage of Six Paths sealed before recorded history. A demon lord from dimensions beyond your understanding, hungry for chakra, blood, and life itself. Then we destroy it," Krul stated with royal certainty. "My nobles are the strongest vampire warriors in Asia." "Your nobles would be consumed in seconds," Naruto countered. "This entity predates vampire kind. It would recognize your blood as derivative of its ancient enemy, me." The ground lurched again, cracks spreading outward like dark veins. From the forest depths came inhuman shrieks as lesser creatures fled the awakening presence. "The seal requires blood to reconstruct," Naruto continued, rolling up his sleeve. "Specific blood. Mine. If you're truly the progenitor," Krul challenged, "prove it. Show power befitting the king of our kind." Naruto sighed, a sound containing centuries of reluctance. "I've avoided displays of power for good reason, Lady Tepes. But circumstances demand adaptation." He moved to the widening crack, hands forming a seal pattern Seras didn't recognize. Golden chakra erupted around him, not the crimson energy of vampire power but something purer, more elemental. The whisker marks on his cheeks darkened as his canines extended subtly. "Behold the truth of vampire origin," he said, voice resonating with power that made even Krul step back. "Not curse or evolution, but fusion of human, sage, and bijou." He bit his thumb, drawing blood that gleamed with unnatural vitality. As it dripped into the crack, the forest illuminated with crawling symbols, ancient scripts spiraling outward in complex patterns that formed a massive seal array. The characters resembled nothing Seras had seen, neither modern language nor known occult symbols. "Uzumaki sealing techniques," Yujito explained, noticing Seras's confusion. "Combined with Six Paths power. The most powerful containment method ever created." The blood-activated seal pulsed, fighting against something pushing from below. Naruto's chakra intensified, 9 distinct energy tails forming behind him, translucent but unmistakable. Magnificent, Krul whispered, academic appreciation overriding political concerns. The legend spoke true. The fox sage who danced between worlds. Naruto's concentration didn't waver as the seal strengthened, ancient characters burning bright enough to illuminate the entire forest clearing. The containment holds temporarily, he grunted. But this entity has gathered strength for centuries. It won't be denied much longer. Then what's the point? Seras asked pragmatically. Naruto's eyes met hers, now red with slitted pupils, power radiating from him in waves that made her vampiric senses reel. Time, Miss Victoria. Time to prepare for war. The seal completed with a thunderous boom that knocked several vampire nobles off their feet. Silence descended, broken only by the sizzling of smoldering seal characters gradually fading into the forest floor. Naruto straightened, chakra cloak dissipating as his appearance returned to normal. Only his eyes remained changed, ancient, knowing, and weary with the burden of immense power. Krul approached him directly, her escort tensing at her proximity to the now proven progenitor. The seal buys us weeks at most, she stated. What then? Then we gather allies, Naruto replied. Humans, vampires, those in between. The ancient accords must be reinstated. My nobles follow me, Krul reminded him, a slight challenge in her tone. Not legends from the shadows, no matter how impressive. I don't seek subjects, Lady Tepes. Only comrades against common threat. Something flickered in Krul's expression, surprise, perhaps even respect. Unusual perspective for the supposed King of Vampires. I never claimed that title. Naruto glanced at the forest, sensing residual energies. Others labeled me progenitor. I merely am what I am, a shinobi who lived too long and changed too much. For the first time, uncertainty showed in Krul's posture. Centuries of vampire politics had prepared her for power struggles, not philosophical detachment from one who could rightfully claim dominion. The Tokyo Convergence Hotel, she said finally. My temporary headquarters. Come tomorrow night, bring your companions. Her eyes lingered on Seras. Including Hellsing's agent, if she's willing to enter vampire territory without her master's permission. Seras tensed. Hellsing exists to hunt vampire threats. If there's something worse emerging, Sir Integra would. Sir Integra Hellsing hasn't returned your last 7 communications, Naruto interrupted gently. London headquarters went silent 3 days ago. Shock registered on Seras's face. That's impossible. I would have been notified, unless the notification system itself was compromised, Yujito suggested. This awakening isn't isolated to Japan. Global supernatural barriers thin simultaneously. Krul nodded agreement. My European contacts report similar disturbances. The Vatican's Section 13 deployed forces to locations they've ignored for centuries. Naruto placed a hand on Seras's shoulder. Hellsing still stands, but communications are severed deliberately. Someone doesn't want organizations comparing notes on what's happening. The information hit Seras visibly, concern for her organization battling professional skepticism. I need to verify this. Of course, Naruto agreed. And we should leave before the seal's energy signature attracts unwanted attention. As if summoned by his words, a high-pitched whistling cut through the night. Naruto moved with blinding speed, pulling Seras aside as something embedded itself in the ground where she'd stood, a black arrow humming with malevolent energy. Demon Hunter, Yujito hissed, dropping into combat stance. Krul's nobles formed protective formation around their queen, eyes scanning the forest perimeter. Imperial Demon Army, Krul confirmed. They monitor supernatural activity throughout Japan. From the tree line emerged a young woman with light lavender hair, wielding a massive scythe that seemed to whisper as it moved. Behind her, several uniformed soldiers took positions with weapons drawn. Third Progenitor Krul Tepes, the woman called, voice carrying surprising authority despite her youth. Unauthorized forest entry during government closure. Typical vampire arrogance. Her calculating eyes shifted to Naruto, narrowing slightly. An interesting company you keep. Human appearance, non-vampire energy signature, yet clearly supernatural. A cold smile. The Hiragi family will be very interested in you, stranger. Naruto studied the newcomer with undisguised curiosity. Shinoa Hiragi, I presume. Your family's demon weapons are impressive heirlooms. Surprise flickered across Shinoa's face before her trained neutrality reasserted itself. You have me at a disadvantage. Professor Uzumaki, Tokyo University. Naruto stepped forward, hands open in non-threatening gesture. The forest destabilizes. Your instruments must have detected the energy spike. Classified information, Shinoa replied smoothly. But since you're apparently well informed, perhaps you'd explain why a history professor, Hellsing operative, and vampire queen converge at the epicenter. Preventing catastrophe, Krul interjected, imperial tone brooking no argument. Unless the Hiragi family prefers apocalyptic demon release to vampire presence. Shinoa's scythe twisted in her hands, the demon within it visibly reacting to Naruto's presence. Shikama Doji, she whispered, addressing the weapon. What troubles you? The scythe trembled, dark energy pulsing along its blade. Naruto approached despite warnings from both Yujito and Krul's nobles. Your demon recognizes older blood, he explained. The weapon responds to power. That created its kind. Shinoa's tactical composure cracked slightly. That's impossible. Cursed gear demons originate from human desires corrupted through supernatural catalysts, Naruto finished. A simplified explanation your family teaches initiates. The truth is more complex. He extended his hand toward the scythe, not touching but close enough that its energy reacted, calming rather than agitating further. Your demon bears fragmented memories of the entity beneath this forest. It fears the awakening more than it fears me. For several tense moments, Shinoa assessed him through narrowed eyes. Finally, she lowered her weapon. My squad detected unprecedented energy signatures. Multiple classification types simultaneously. The seal weakens, Naruto confirmed. What sleeps will wake fully within weeks, perhaps days. When it does, the distinction between vampire, human, and demon hunter becomes irrelevant. All become prey. Shinoa glanced at her squad, then back to the unlikely gathering before her. Making a decision, she signaled her team to stand down. The Hiragi family headquarters needs this information, she stated. All of you should come with us for debriefing. Krul laughed, a musical sound belying deadly intent. I don't answer to human authorities, child. Not even ones with borrowed demon power. Nor do I, Naruto added more diplomatically. But cooperation becomes necessary. He turned to Krul. The Tokyo convergence tomorrow night. Invite Hiragi representatives. Bring your most trusted nobles. His gaze shifted to Seras. Confirm Hellsing's status and return if you choose. A summit? Shinoa asked skeptically. While demons awaken beneath Japan. A war council, Naruto corrected. Because what comes isn't merely demonic. It's the origin of what humans call demons, the darkness that predates light itself. The gravity of his words settled over the clearing. Even Krul's expression sobered as she nodded agreement. Tomorrow night, she confirmed, gesturing her nobles to depart. Before leaving, she approached Naruto directly. I have ruled for centuries believing myself among the oldest of our kind. To discover living history changes, perspectives. Power isn't always about dominion, Lady Tepes, Naruto replied softly. Sometimes it's about protection. Something unreadable flickered in her crimson eyes. An unusual philosophy for one of your abilities. I look forward to understanding it better. As Krul's procession vanished into the forest, Shinoa's team maintained wary distance. My superiors will want explanations, she insisted. And they'll have them, Naruto assured her. But tonight, reinforce the perimeter. Keep civilians away from Aokigahara. The seal holds temporarily, but its energy attracts lesser demons like moths to flame. Shinoa hesitated, then nodded sharply. Tomorrow night. She turned to leave, then paused. Professor Uzumaki, the records mention a sage who sealed great demons in antiquity. A being of immense power who walked through time itself. Her eyes studied him with new intensity. Those records are supposedly myth. Naruto's smile held millennia of secrets. All myths contain truth, Miss Hiragi. Sometimes more than we're prepared to face. As Shinoa's squad departed, Seras finally holstered her weapon. I should report to Hellsing, verify their status. Of course, Naruto agreed. Though I suspect you'll find communications deliberately severed. Someone orchestrates these events globally. Why tell me this? Why involve me at all? Seras asked directly. I'm just a field operative. Naruto's expression softened. Because you're more, Seras Victoria. Your master Alucard knows this, why he chose you specifically. You retain humanity while wielding Knight's power. That balance becomes crucial in days ahead. He extended his hand, an oddly human gesture from a being of such power. The choice remains yours. Investigate. Confirm. Then decide if our paths converge. After a moment's hesitation, Seras shook his hand. The contact sent unexpected warmth through her undead flesh, not threatening but revitalizing, as though something long dormant stirred within her blood. I'll see you tomorrow night, she said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. Assuming London hasn't actually fallen. It stands, Naruto assured her. Though changed, perhaps. Be careful, police girl. The familiar nickname, one Alucard used often, startled her. How did you? But Naruto and Yujito had already vanished, leaving only disturbed leaves where they'd stood. Seras stared at her hand, still tingling from contact with the being who claimed to be Vampire's progenitor. Whatever awaited at tomorrow's gathering, she suspected her understanding of the supernatural world would never be the same. Dawn approached as Naruto stood atop Tokyo Tower, watching the city awaken. Yujito materialized beside him, her movements silent even to his enhanced senses. Revealing yourself after centuries of shadows, she observed. The Kyuubi would be amused. Kurama understood necessity better than most, Naruto replied, ancient sorrow coloring his tone. His oldest friend had faded centuries ago, the final-tailed beast returning to chakra nature as human potential evolved beyond Jinchuriki vessels. The Tepes queen is dangerous, Yujito continued. 5 centuries ruling vampires create certain expectations of power. She adapts quickly. Saw the truth rather than denying it. And the Hellsing vampire? The one who smells of police and conscience. Naruto smiled slightly. Reminds me of people long gone. Determination despite overwhelming odds. Humanity despite inhuman power. You collected strays even when mortal, Yujito teased gently. Some habits persist beyond death itself. We were all strays once, he reminded her. Even the legendary Two-Tails Jinchuriki. Yujito's expression softened, rare vulnerability from a warrior who had survived centuries through fierce independence. The world changes again, Naruto. As it did when chakra faded and technology rose. Evolution continues, he agreed. But some threats transcend time. What sleeps beneath Aokigahara is what the sage himself feared, why he created Ninshu in the first place. Power to connect rather than destroy. Yet here we stand, creatures of night and blood. Yujito gazed toward the lightning horizon. Ironic that those the world calls monsters now stand as its defenders. Naruto's eyes reflected the first glimmer of sunrise, ancient beyond measure yet still containing that original determination that had defined the boy from Konoha. Monster is perspective, he said quietly. Humanity is choice. We learned that lesson long before vampires walked the earth. As dawn broke over Tokyo, they vanished, returning to shadow until night would call them forth again. The Progenitor King had awakened after centuries of hiding. Whether the supernatural world was prepared for his return remained to be seen. Chapter 2, Blood Alliance's moonlight fractured across the crystalline spires of Krul Tepes' ancestral stronghold, Sanguinum, hidden within the Carpathian Mountains where few humans dared venture. Ancient stone melded with modern reinforcements, creating a fortress that honored tradition while acknowledging necessity. Snow fell in lazy spirals, accumulating on ramparts where vampire sentries stood motionless, their breath absent in the frigid air. Seras Victoria pulled her Hellsing uniform tighter, an unconscious human gesture despite her undead nature. Dracula would feel right at home, she muttered, following her escort through vaulted corridors where torchlight cast dancing shadows on blood-red tapestries. Count Dracula was a pretender, her guide responded, a noble vampire with silver hair and eyes like frozen amber. A human warlord who borrowed vampire mystique to terrorize enemies. Tell that to my master, Seras replied, unable to resist. The noble's horrified expression confirmed her suspicion, Alucard's reputation extended even here. 3 days had passed since the Aokigahara incident. 3 days of unsettling revelations that had shaken Seras's understanding of the supernatural world she'd reluctantly joined 5 years ago. Hellsing headquarters remained intact but communications deliberately severed, internal sabotage that Sir Integra was quietly investigating. When Seras had reported the Tokyo situation, her commander had responded with uncharacteristic vulnerability, "We're blind to larger forces, Victoria. For now, maintain position and gather intelligence." So here she stood, a Hellsing operative willingly entering vampire territory, not as hunter but as potential ally. The irony wasn't lost on her. The great hall opened before them, a cavernous space where Gothic architecture met modern functionality. Dozens of vampire nobles conversed in clusters, their languages shifting fluidly between ancient tongues and modern dialects. They fell silent as Seras entered, predatory eyes assessing the foreign vampire who served humans. At the hall's center stood Professor Uzumaki, or rather, Naruto, as he'd asked her to call him. His casual posture belied the subtle authority he projected. Unlike the elaborately dressed nobles, he wore simple clothing, black pants, a burnt orange shirt beneath a modernized haori bearing spiral patterns in crimson thread. Beside him, Yujito conversed with a cluster of Asian vampires, her presence clearly familiar to the court. Krul Tepes occupied an ornate throne elevated on a dais, her childlike form swallowed by the massive seat yet somehow commanding it completely. Her pink hair cascaded over robes of crimson and black, imperial authority personified in deceptively diminutive form. The Hellsing operative arrives, Krul announced, silencing lingering whispers. Our gathering nears completion. Naruto turned, acknowledging Seras with a nod that contained both greeting and reassurance. Sir Integra permitted your continued involvement. Ordered it, actually, Seras replied, approaching. Hellsing records contain references to the convergence you mentioned, ancient texts previously considered mythological. Nothing mythological about it, came a new voice, sharp with controlled disdain. Shirnoa Hiragi entered from a side corridor, her demon weapon dormant but visible. Unlike their forest encounter, she now wore formal Hiragi clan robes, indigo and silver, emblazoned with family crests. Behind her followed 3 figures in Imperial Demon Army uniforms, their expressions rigid with tension. The demon hunter graces us with her presence, Krul observed dryly. How reassuring that humans still believe themselves relevant to supernatural affairs. Relevance is earned through capability, Lady Tepes, Shirnoa countered smoothly, not birthright or longevity. Before Krul could respond, Naruto stepped between them, not physically imposing himself but drawing attention with subtle authority. Capability and cooperation determine survival in days ahead, he stated. Personal grievances become luxury none can afford. Something in his tone, perhaps the weight of millennia behind the words, settled the brewing confrontation. Krul gestured imperiously, and servants brought forth ancient scrolls laid carefully on velvet cushions. The artifacts you requested, Professor Uzumaki, she announced. Retrieved from Vatican vaults during the Crusades, originals, not copies. Naruto approached the scrolls with reverence bordering on nostalgia. His fingers hovered over weathered parchment inscribed with symbols that seemed to shift under direct observation. The sage's records, he murmured. I haven't seen these in centuries. Those belong in Hiragi research facilities, Shinoa interjected, professional interest overriding protocol. The symbols match fragments in our ancestral archives. They belong to no one, Naruto corrected gently. Knowledge transcends ownership. He unrolled the first scroll carefully, revealing intricate diagrams depicting a massive tree, 9 distinct creatures, and a central figure wielding a staff. The ancient ink gleamed with unnatural vitality, as though recently applied rather than millennia old. The divine tree, Naruto explained, touching the illustration with something like fondness. Source of chakra, what humans later called life force, chi, or spiritual energy. The beginning of power in human form. Seras studied the scroll with professional interest, noting similarities to occult texts in Hellsing archives. These creatures, the tailed beasts from Japanese mythology? Not mythology, Yujito replied, approaching. Beings of immense chakra who once walked the world. Kurama, Matatabi, Shikaku, 9 manifestations of primordial energy. Krul descended from her throne, childlike appearance contradicted by the ancient knowledge in her eyes. The scroll speaks of a fracturing, how true vampires diverged from original chakra users. A simplification, Naruto noted, unrolling the second scroll. This one depicted a battlefield, figures wielding various energies against shadowy entities emerging from a crack in reality. The entity beneath Aokigahara, one of many that invaded when dimensions weakened. The sage and his allies sealed them, but containment required sacrifice. His expression darkened with memory. Some who fought absorbed demonic essence during sealing. Their chakra transformed, creating hunger for life energy, blood became the simplest transfer medium. The first vampires, Krul whispered, understanding dawning. Not cursed or transformed but, warriors who sacrificed humanity to save it. A noble interpretation, Naruto acknowledged. Reality proved messier. Some embraced predatory nature, seeing humans as cattle. Others maintained connection to their human origins, feeding without killing, protecting rather than hunting. This contradicts all vampire origin texts, one noble objected. Our kind descends from ancient nobility, not comfortable myths, Naruto interrupted, not unkindly. Humans aren't alone in preferring flattering history to truth. Shinoa approached the scrolls, her tactical demeanor momentarily replaced by scholarly fascination. These match fragments in Hiragi archives, texts describing how demon weapons were forged. Her eyes narrowed thoughtfully. You speak of these events from first-person knowledge, Professor. Perspective changes when you live through history rather than reading it, Naruto replied, neither confirming nor denying her implication. The gathering tensed as new arrivals were announced, a contingent of European vampires led by a tall, aristocratic figure whose very presence seemed to lower the chamber's temperature. The Germanic bloodline arrives, Krul acknowledged with minimal courtesy. Lord Wilhelm. The newcomer bowed with precision that suggested military background rather than courtly manners. His cold eyes assessed each person methodically before settling on Naruto with obvious calculation. The supposed progenitor graces us with his presence, Wilhelm remarked, German accent precise and clipped. After centuries of absence while others maintained vampire society. Naruto met his gaze without hostility or deference. I never claimed authority over vampire kind, Lord Wilhelm. My absence was deliberate. Yet you summon factions across continents, Wilhelm countered, circling Naruto with predatory assessment. Vampire nobles, human organizations, demon hunters, gathering pieces for what purpose? Survival, Naruto replied simply. The seals weaken globally. What emerges remembers those who imprisoned it. Before Wilhelm could respond, the chamber doors slammed open with force that cracked ancient wood. A figure stumbled through, female, petite, with blonde hair streaked crimson from numerous wounds. Her uniform, torn and bloodied, bore the insignia of Wilhelm's house. "My lord," she gasped, collapsing to one knee. Vienna, attacked. The research facility, breached. Wilhelm moved with vampiric speed, supporting the messenger. "Explain, Mika. Who dared attack my territory?" The wounded vampire, Mika, raised eyes that shifted between crimson and an unnatural blue. Not who, what? Entities emerged from beneath the catacombs. Researchers, consumed. The specimens, released. Her gaze locked on Naruto with sudden recognition, or perhaps fear. "You," she whispered. The scroll spoke truth. The fox sage who walks through time. Naruto approached, kneeling beside the wounded vampire without concern for decorum. "You've seen the ancient texts," he noted, not a question. "Translated fragments," she confirmed, wincing as movement reopened wounds. "Before everything burned." Without asking permission, Naruto placed his palm over her most serious injury, a gaping wound that exposed bone beneath her collarbone. Golden chakra illuminated his hand, flowing into damaged tissue that knitted together with visible speed. "Impossible," Wilhelm muttered. "Vampire healing requires blood consumption, not if you understand what vampire flesh truly is," Naruto interrupted, continuing his work. "Modified chakra pathways can be restored directly." As the gathering watched in astonishment, Mika's wounds closed completely, leaving unmarred skin behind. Color returned to her pale features, strength visibly flowing back into her slender frame. "Chakra transfusion," Yujito explained to the bewildered audience. "A technique lost when natural energy thinned from the world." Mika stared at her healed body, then at Naruto, confusion battling with instinctive recognition. "You're really him," she whispered. "The one who gave blood to the first night children." "Michaela Hayakuya," Naruto addressed her directly, helping her stand. "Former human experiment, transformed against your will, carrying Seraph modifications in vampire form." Shock registered on Michaela's face. "How could you possibly know? Your blood speaks volumes," Naruto replied, turning to the gathered factions. "As does this attack. Vienna falls first because it houses research into both vampire origins and Seraph experiments. Knowledge is being systematically erased." Wilhelm's aristocratic composure cracked slightly. "My entire bloodline maintained those archives for centuries. If Vienna falls, other facilities follow," Krul finished grimly. "A coordinated offensive against vampire knowledge bases." "But why?" "To prevent understanding of what emerges," Naruto explained. "Knowledge grants power against these entities. They strike information repositories first, vampire archives, hunter records, historical collections." Shinoa tensed visibly. Hiragi headquarters houses the largest collection of supernatural research in Asia. And Hellsing's archives contain centuries of occult documentation, Seras added, understanding dawning. Sir Integra's investigation, internal sabotage targeting communication systems. Isolate, eliminate information sharing, then destroy knowledge bases, Naruto summarized. Standard tactical approach when facing informed opposition. The gathering erupted into urgent conversations, vampire nobles arguing protection priorities while Shinoa consulted hurriedly with her team. Amidst the chaos, Seras noticed how naturally authority flowed toward Naruto despite his deliberate stance at the chamber's periphery rather than center. Krul silenced the uproar with a sharp command. "Enough. Disorganized reaction plays into enemy strategy." Her gaze shifted to Naruto. What would the progenitor suggest? All eyes turned to him, vampire nobles who had ruled for centuries, demon hunters trained to destroy supernatural threats, Hellsing's agents sworn to protect humanity. The weight of their attention seemed insignificant compared to the calm certainty in his ancient eyes. Diversified defense with knowledge preservation priority, he stated without hesitation. Each faction contains unique information necessary for understanding the enemy. Pooling resources becomes essential. Vampire nobles do not simply hand over centuries of accumulated knowledge, Wilhelm objected. Security becomes irrelevant if all archives burn, Naruto interrupted. I propose blood alliances, formal pacts binding participants to mutual defense and information sharing. A murmur ran through the gathering, some outraged, others calculating the advantages. Blood alliances were ancient vampire tradition, rarely invoked and never with humans or rival factions. Blood alliances require blood exchange, one noble called out. You suggest vampires share blood with humans? With hunters who destroy our kind? I suggest survival requires adaptation, Naruto countered calmly. Blood alliances create bonds transcending mere agreement. Betrayal becomes physically painful, impossible to conceal. Krul studied him with newfound respect. Blood alliance with the progenitor, such bonds would strengthen all participants considerably. And create leverage we cannot easily break, Wilhelm noted suspiciously. Trust requires vulnerability from all sides, Naruto acknowledged. I offer my blood freely, the original source from which all vampire lineages descended. In return, I ask commitment to preservation rather than dominance. The chamber fell silent as implications settled. Vampire nobles exchanged glances weighted with centuries of politics and survival instinct. Shinoa's team shifted uncomfortably, the concept of blood sharing with vampires clearly disturbing their hunter sensibilities. Seras broke the silence with practical British directness. Hellsing exists to protect humanity from supernatural threats. If greater dangers emerge, adaptation becomes necessary. She stepped forward. I'll participate in this blood alliance on Hellsing's behalf, pending Sir Integra's approval. Bold stance from Alucard's fledgling, Krul observed with faint amusement. Does your master's blood allow such independence? My master taught me to think beyond limitations, Seras replied evenly. Particularly my own. Naruto nodded appreciation for her support. The ritual requires willing participation. Consider carefully, blood alliance creates connections transcending distance. Emotions, knowledge, even memories may transfer depending on compatibility. I've seen enough, Shinoa declared unexpectedly. The Hiragi family doesn't form alliances with vampires under normal circumstances. She paused, sharing meaningful glances with her team. But current circumstances exceed normal parameters. I'll participate personally, though I cannot commit my entire clan. Wilhelm straightened his immaculate uniform, aristocratic features settling into grudging acceptance. Vienna burns while we debate. Pragmatism dictates unusual measures. He gestured to Michaela. My ward and I will represent the Germanic bloodline. One by one, representatives stepped forward, Asian vampire nobles, European bloodlines, even demon hunters from different regions who had arrived during the discussion. Krul watched with calculated assessment before descending from her throne with imperial grace. Sanguinum has stood for millennia, she announced. Its knowledge vaults will not fall while I rule. The third progenitor joins this blood alliance. Naruto nodded acknowledgement, then turned to Yujito. Preparations. The former Jinchuriki produced an ornate crystal decanter and matching goblet, both inscribed with spiraling seals that glowed faintly in the torchlight. Everything as specified. The ritual chamber would be more appropriate, Krul suggested. Ancient energies concentrate beneath this fortress. Energy concentrations attract attention, Naruto countered. Better here, where multiple auras create background interference. With practiced efficiency, he arranged participants in a circle around a central table where Yujito placed the ritual implements. Taking a ceremonial knife with 9 distinct blade curves, Naruto sliced his palm deeply, blood flowing more freely than normal vampire wounds would allow. As crimson liquid filled the crystal decanter, those with heightened senses detected its distinctive nature, power unlike standard vampire blood, rich with energy that seemed almost visible to naked eyes. Progenitor blood, Wilhelm murmured, academic fascination momentarily overriding political concerns. Undiluted by generations of descent. When the decanter filled completely, Naruto passed the knife to Krul. Each participant contributes equally. Blood and intent align through shared purpose. The third progenitor accepted the blade with regal dignity, adding her ancient blood to the mixture. The ritual proceeded methodically, Wilhelm and Michaela representing Germanic lines, Chernoa contributing human blood with traces of demon energy, Asian nobles adding their distinctive lineages. When Seras' turn came, she hesitated briefly before making her contribution. "My blood carries Alucard's influence," she warned. "All influences become relevant," Naruto assured her. "The alliance seeks compatibility through diversity, not uniformity through dominance." Once all participants had contributed, Yujito sealed the decanter with practiced movements, activating inscriptions that glowed with increasing intensity. The combined blood within shifted, not mixing randomly but forming distinct patterns, spirals and currents that seemed purposeful rather than chaotic. "The alliance recognizes compatible intent," Naruto explained, observing the phenomenon. "Blood remembers its origins despite centuries of divergence." He unsealed the decanter, filling the ritual goblet with the transformed mixture. The liquid now gleamed with unnatural vitality, neither fully vampire blood nor human, but something transcending both categories. "The first participant establishes connection parameters," he continued, offering the goblet to Krul. "As territorial host and ancient bloodline representative." The third progenitor accepted with formal precision, studying the contents with undisguised curiosity. "Blood alliance has not been performed with such diverse participants in recorded history," she noted. "Effects may exceed traditional boundaries." "Evolution through necessity," Naruto agreed. "Adaptation determines survival." Krul consumed her portion with imperial grace, passing the goblet to Wilhelm. The Germanic vampire lord hesitated fractionally before drinking his share. As the ritual proceeded around the circle, subtle changes manifested in each participant, enhanced awareness, heightened senses, the beginning of connections forming between disparate beings. When the goblet reached Michaela, she faltered visibly. "My blood, its modifications might contaminate, your uniqueness strengthens the whole," Naruto interrupted gently. "Seraph elements provide insight into what we face." With uncertain resolve, Michaela drank her portion. The reaction proved immediately distinctive, her eyes flaring brilliant blue as wings of light momentarily manifested before subsiding. "Seraph activation," Chernoa noted clinically, though concern showed in her expression. "Triggered by progenitor blood components." "Recognition rather than activation," Naruto clarified. "Her dual nature acknowledges compatible energy." When Seras received the goblet, professional caution warred with commitment to understanding the supernatural threats facing Hellsing. "Sir Integra would have questions about this procedure," she muttered. "Sir Integra would demand complete information before making tactical decisions," Naruto replied with surprising insight into Hellsing's commander. "This alliance provides access otherwise unobtainable." Seras nodded and consumed her portion, experiencing immediate sensory expansion, awareness extending beyond physical limitations, connecting with others in the circle through invisible threads of shared purpose. Finally, Naruto completed the circle, drinking the remaining mixture. Unlike others whose reactions showed varying intensity, his response appeared controlled, focused integration rather than surprised adjustment. "The blood alliance establishes," he announced as the empty goblet returned to the table's center. "Initial connections formed through proximity, strengthening over coming days." A subtle shift rippled through the gathering, tension not disappearing but transforming into something more purposeful. Ancient enemies found common focus through blood-shared intent, their differences temporarily subordinated to mutual survival. "I sense Shinoa began, surprise evident in her normally composed features. Impressions. Knowledge fragments not my own. Information sharing begins instinctively, Yujito explained. Priority knowledge transfers first, threat assessment, defensive capabilities, strategic insights. Wilhelm touched his temple, aristocratic reserve momentarily disrupted. Vienna's research. I can access fragments through Michaela's memories. The attack pattern becomes clearer. Coordinated emergence at multiple sites, Krul confirmed, receiving similar impressions. Targeting knowledge repositories specifically. Seras experienced the connection differently, not just information transfer but emotional resonance, particularly with Naruto. Fragmentary impressions of incredible loneliness spanning centuries, determination despite overwhelming loss, compassion preserved against the weight of immortality. The alliance functions beyond expectation, Naruto observed, satisfaction evident in his tone. Diverse blood components enhance rather than conflict. Michaela approached him directly, newfound connection overriding previous hesitation. Your blood recognizes mine, she stated, confusion evident. How? Seraph modifications were created by human researchers centuries after vampires emerged. Seraph experimentation draws on principles older than human civilization, Naruto explained. Manipulation of divine energy through human vessels, echoing techniques the Otsutsuki clan pioneered millennia ago. Otsutsuki? Shinoa interjected. That designation appears in restricted Hiragi archives. Ancient clan that harvested worlds, Naruto elaborated. They sought divine fruits from cultivation trees, absorbing life energy from entire planets. Their techniques for energy manipulation formed the basis for what later became chakra use, vampire transformation, demon weapons, and eventually, Seraph experiments. You speak of alien beings, Wilhelm stated skeptically. Extraterrestrial origins for vampire kind? I speak of dimensional travelers, Naruto corrected. The distinction matters when understanding what emerges from weakening seals. These entities originate from dimensions the Otsutsuki themselves feared to enter. The gathering absorbed this revelation with varying degrees of acceptance. For supernatural beings accustomed to existing beyond human understanding, the concept of dimensional entities proved less shocking than for ordinary humans. The Blood Alliance allows coordinated response, Krul noted practically, returning discussion to immediate concerns. Vienna falls, but other repositories can be protected. Precisely, Naruto agreed. Each faction contributes unique capabilities. Vampire speed and regeneration, hunter knowledge of demon weaknesses, Hellsing's tactical experience against supernatural threats. And what does the Progenitor contribute? Wilhelm challenged, though without previous hostility. Naruto's expression shifted subtly, ancient weariness momentarily visible beneath his youthful appearance. Specific knowledge of what we face, and techniques for confronting entities that conventional weapons cannot harm. He approached the ancient scrolls again, unrolling the third and final document. Unlike the previous two, this scroll contained no illustrations, only intricate script in a language none present recognized. The original sealing techniques, he explained. Created by combining Uzumaki clan Fuinjutsu with Six Paths Sage power. Modified for contemporary application without natural chakra sources. You suggest recreating thousand-year-old techniques with modern adaptations? Shinoa questioned skeptically. I suggest understanding principles that transcend time, Naruto corrected. Energy manipulation fundamentals remain constant despite vocabulary changes. The gathering was interrupted as alarms sounded throughout the fortress, high-pitched wails signaling immediate threat. Krul's nobles rushed to defensive positions while communication devices activated simultaneously across factions. Multiple emergence points detected globally, reported a Hiragi team member, reviewing data on a tactical display. Pattern matches Vienna incident but exponentially larger scale. Tokyo headquarters under attack, another confirmed grimly. Containment failing at Aokigahara site despite reinforcements. Seras received Hellsing's emergency transmission simultaneously. London reports dimensional breaches beneath the tower. Sur Integra requests immediate reinforcement. The controlled atmosphere dissolved into urgent activity as each faction processed threats to their respective territories. Naruto observed momentarily before his voice cut through the chaos with surprising authority. "This is coordinated assault," he stated, focusing their attention. "Exactly as the Blood Alliance was formed. Our enemy possesses tactical awareness and timing precision. Which means intelligence rather than instinct," Wilhelm noted. "Strategic rather than opportunistic." "Precisely." Naruto moved to a massive wall map displaying global supernatural monitoring sites. "The pattern isn't random. Primary targets form ritual configuration, a summoning array using planetary ley lines." "Summoning what, exactly?" Krul demanded, imperial composure strained by the implications. Naruto's expression darkened with ancient memory. What the Sage of Six Paths feared most. The origin entity that spawned the divine tree itself, what some texts call Shinju, others Yggdrasil, still others the Tree of Knowledge. Mythological references to the same phenomenon, Shinoa noted, tactical analysis overriding skepticism. Convergent terminology across cultures. Because all encountered fragments of the same entity, Naruto confirmed. What emerges now is the original, the source from which fragments descended. The Blood Alliance participants exchanged glances, shared blood enabling faster comprehension of implications than words alone could convey. Through their newfound connection, emotional responses transferred alongside tactical assessment, determination, concern, resolve melding into collective purpose. "We divide according to capability," Krul decided, assuming command naturally despite Naruto's seniority. Each faction defends priority targets within their territory while coordinating through blood connection. "Agreed," Wilhelm concurred, previous political rivalry subordinated to practical necessity. Germanic bloodlines secure European repositories and containment sites. Hiragi forces coordinate Asian defense, Shinoa added. With emphasis on knowledge preservation rather than mere containment. "And Hellsing?" Seras questioned, aware of her organization's limited personnel compared to vampire nobles or hunter clans. "Hellsing possesses something equally valuable," Naruto noted. Alucard's direct connection to primordial darkness. His understanding of shadow manipulation provides insight others lack. "You want me to ask my master to cooperate with vampires?" Seras asked incredulously. "I want you to remind him of Budapest, 1594, Naruto replied with surprising specificity. "When a blonde shinobi prevented his final death at Ottoman hands." Shock registered on Seras's face. "You knew Alucard when he was human? When he was still Vlad Tepes?" "I've known many who walked through history's shadows," Naruto answered cryptically. Some remembered, others chose to forget. Before further discussion could develop, the fortress shuddered violently, ancient stone cracking as something massive impacted the outer defenses. Alarm systems elevated to highest priority as vampire sentries reported multiple breach attempts. "They found us faster than anticipated," Yujito noted grimly. Blood ritual energy signature likely attracted attention. As expected, Naruto confirmed, surprising the others. Controlled engagement under prepared conditions provides tactical advantage. Understanding dawned on Krul's features. "You anticipated immediate attack. This fortress was deliberately exposed. Better confrontation in stronghold than hunting scattered." "Emergences," Naruto agreed unapologetically. "Besides, Blood Alliance participants needed practical demonstration of what we face." As if summoned by his words, the massive chamber doors shattered inward, not merely broken but disintegrated into component particles. Through the ruined entryway flowed darkness given form, neither smoke nor liquid but something between states, absorbing light rather than blocking it. Primary manifestation, Naruto identified, stepping forward while others instinctively retreated. Advanced entity assessing defense capabilities. The darkness coalesced into vaguely humanoid shape, towering and emaciated, with limbs too long for natural proportion. Where a face should form, only swirling void appeared, occasionally revealing suggestion of features, eyes like collapsed stars, mouth containing geometries that hurt mortal minds. Fascinating, Chernoa whispered, professional detachment barely masking instinctive horror. Non-Euclidean manifestation in physical space. Classification exceeds conventional parameters, Wilhelm added, aristocratic calm strained but holding. Neither demonic nor spiritual in traditional taxonomy. The entity oriented toward their voices, void face turning with unnatural precision. When it spoke, the sound came not from apparent mouth but from air surrounding them, words forming through atmosphere compression rather than vocal production. Blood of the source, it intoned, language ancient yet perfectly comprehensible. Fragment that walks. The vessel that contained the nine. Its attention fixed on Naruto with terrible focus, darkness rippling with what might be recognition. Fox sage. Seal maker. Betrayer of natural order. You remember me, Naruto acknowledged, neither retreating nor advancing. Despite reconstruction through dimensional barriers. Time means nothing beyond boundaries, the entity replied. Your seal delays inevitable convergence. Seras raised her weapon instinctively, shadow arm extending into combat configuration. Tactical assessment. Can conventional attacks affect it? Physical weapons pass through manifested form, Naruto cautioned. It exists partially in adjacent dimension, using darkness as interface rather than true body. Then how do we fight it? Michaela demanded, her seraph nature reacting visibly to the entity's presence, wings of light attempting manifestation despite her control. We don't, Naruto stated calmly. Not directly. Not yet. Before anyone could question further, Naruto bit both thumbs simultaneously, drawing blood that glowed with golden energy. With blinding speed, he traced complex patterns in the air, symbols hanging momentarily before igniting with internal light. Uzumaki sealing technique, dimensional boundary reflection, he announced, completing the pattern with a final symbol pressed directly into the entity's darkness. The chamber illuminated with brilliant gold as seal characters wrapped themselves around the manifested darkness, constricting inward with inexorable force. The entity's form distorted, stretching, compressing, then inverting through dimensional space with a sound like reality tearing. Temporary measure, it hissed as its presence diminished. The boundary thins. The convergence approaches. All worlds become one. With a final implosion of darkness, the entity vanished, not destroyed but forcibly returned through dimensional barrier. The seal characters lingered momentarily before dissolving into particles of golden light that settled on participants like luminous dust. Stunned silence held the chamber before reactions cascaded through Blood Alliance members, awe, fear, tactical assessment all transmitting through their newfound connection. That, Naruto stated into the silence, was merely a scout. Preliminary manifestation testing resistance. You recognized each other, Krul observed sharply. That entity knew you specifically. We've met before, Naruto acknowledged, inspecting the dimensional tear for residual energy. Several times across centuries. It learns and adapts with each emergence attempt. You called it inevitable, Chernoa noted with tactical precision. The convergence it mentioned. Inevitable without intervention, Naruto clarified. Natural dimensional boundaries thin cyclically. What changes is our preparedness, our understanding of manipulation techniques. Wilhelm approached the area where the entity had manifested, aristocratic features composed despite the supernatural display witnessed. These sealing techniques, they require your specific abilities. They require understanding principles behind reality manipulation, Naruto corrected. Something each faction possesses fragments of through different traditions. Vampire blood manipulation, hunter-demon contracts, Hellsing shadow control, all derive from the same fundamental concepts. You propose teaching thousand-year-old techniques in hours? Seras questioned skeptically. I propose awakening knowledge your blood already contains, Naruto countered. The alliance transfers more than conscious information. Instinctive understanding follows as connections strengthen. As if confirming his words, Michaela suddenly traced a symbol in the air, an exact replica of one Naruto had formed during his sealing technique. The mark glowed briefly before fading, leaving her staring at her hand in confusion. "I don't know how I did that," she admitted. "The knowledge simply appeared." "Blood remembers," Yujito explained, satisfaction evident in her tone. "Particularly blood with direct connection to original source." Krul observed the phenomenon with calculating assessment. "Blood alliance benefits exceed traditional parameters," she noted. "Advantageous development despite circumstances. Precisely why ancient vampires limited such rituals," Wilhelm remarked. "Power transfer threatens hierarchical stability. Or enables survival beyond artificial boundaries," Naruto suggested. "Evolution requires adaptation, not rigid adherence to established patterns." The conversation paused as communication devices activated simultaneously, multiple reports confirming entity manifestations worldwide, varying in strength but identical in fundamental nature. "Global emergence accelerates," Shinoa reported, reviewing Hiragi monitoring data. "Pattern suggests coordinated assault rather than random breaches." "The initial phase proceeds as expected," Naruto confirmed, unsurprised by developments. "Dimensional scouts establish parameters before primary forces emerge." "You anticipated this sequence," Krul observed. "Your knowledge exceeds historical records." "I've witnessed previous cycles," Naruto acknowledged. "Though never with current intensity. Something catalyzed additional forces, perhaps human experimentation with dimensional boundaries, perhaps natural cosmic alignment." "Theoretical discussion yields to practical necessity," Wilhelm interjected pragmatically. "Defense priorities require immediate attention." "Agreed," Krul concurred. "Each faction secures respective territories while maintaining alliance connection." "We'll need coordination beyond conventional means," Naruto noted, producing a small scroll from within his Haori. "Blood alliance provides basic connection, but distance diminishes effectiveness." He unrolled the scroll, revealing complex seal arrangements surrounding 9 distinct symbols. "Flying Thunder God markers, instantaneous transportation technique utilizing dimensional folding rather than conventional movement." "Teleportation?" Seras questioned skeptically. "Space-time manipulation," Naruto corrected. "Distance becomes irrelevant when dimensions themselves can be folded." With methodical precision, he duplicated the seal onto smaller tags, distributing one to each primary faction representative. "These connect to my original marker. Activation requires minimal blood contact and specific intent. Blood as catalyst rather than mere symbolic component," Shinoa noted with academic interest. "Consistent with Hiragi theoretical research into transportation circles." As preparations intensified around them, Seras found herself positioned near Naruto while others coordinated their respective forces. The momentary isolation allowed for direct questioning without broader audience. "You're older than you appear," she observed quietly. "Much older." Naruto smiled faintly, an expression containing both amusement and ancient weariness. "Age becomes relative when centuries pass like seasons." "How old exactly?" His eyes met hers directly, blue depths containing memories beyond human comprehension. "Old enough to remember when chakra flowed through all living things. When humans dreamed of peace rather than power. When the entity we faced was merely legend rather than imminent threat." "That doesn't answer my question," Seras pressed. "Some questions have answers too heavy for casual conversation," Naruto replied gently. "What matters isn't my age but my purpose, protecting what remains worth saving in this world." Something in his expression, perhaps loneliness recognized by her own isolated existence, resonated unexpectedly. Through their blood connection, Seras glimpsed fragmentary impressions, a village hidden among massive trees, a swing hanging empty, a headband symbol representing loyalty to comrades long turned to dust. "You lost everything," she whispered, understanding flowing through blood-shared empathy. Everyone you ever knew. And found new purpose regardless, Naruto completed, neither confirming nor denying her insight. As did you, police girl, when bullets tore through your human life. The familiar address, one only Alucard used, startled her. How much do you know about me? Blood reveals truths beyond conscious knowledge, he answered cryptically. Your determination despite fear, compassion despite predatory nature, humanity preserved through conscious choice rather than circumstance. His assessment, uncomfortably accurate yet kindly delivered, left Seras momentarily speechless. Before she could formulate response, Krul approached with imperial purpose, interrupting their exchange. Tokyo headquarters faces immediate threat, the Vampire Queen announced. Hiragi forces report containment failure at multiple sites. Transportation priority shifts to Asian territories. Naruto nodded agreement. The confrontation accelerates beyond expected timelines. Convergence approaches faster than previous cycles predicted. Previous cycles lacked human interference, Yujito noted, joining their conversation. Technology accelerates what once progressed naturally. Preparations concluded with efficient urgency as factions organized according to territorial priorities. Naruto addressed the gathered alliance with calm authority that belied the chaos unfolding worldwide. Each faction defends knowledge repositories within respective territories, he instructed. Preservation takes priority over conventional containment. What we know determines survival more than what we destroy. And if conventional defenses fail? Wilhelm questioned practically. Then improvise, Naruto replied with unexpected humor. Adaptation defines survival when facing unprecedented threat. As the gathering dispersed toward assigned destinations, Naruto approached Michaela directly, his interest in the Seraph vampire hybrid evident beyond tactical necessity. Your blood contains unique properties, he noted. Seraph modifications interact with progenitor components in ways researchers never anticipated. Michaela regarded him warily despite blood alliance connection. The experiments were designed to create weapons against vampires. The irony of becoming what they sought to destroy isn't lost on me. Yet you maintained core identity despite transformation, Naruto observed. Humanity isn't biological classification but conscious choice, something we share despite different paths to current existence. His insight, precisely targeting her private struggle, visibly affected her composure. How could you possibly understand? Because I've walked similar path, he replied simply. Containing power others feared, transforming beyond human limitation while preserving human connection. The container remains important regardless of what it holds. Something in his words, or perhaps meaning transmitted through blood connection, resonated with Michaela's experience. Her defensive posture softened fractionally. Vienna's research. She began hesitantly. They discovered connection between Seraph modifications and what they called bijou containment protocols in ancient texts. Naruto's expression shifted subtly, recognition rather than surprise. Expected development. Both systems manipulate divine energy through human vessels, creating hybrid entities with unique capabilities. They claim these bijou were tailed beasts from mythology, Michaela continued. Creatures of immense chakra sealed within human hosts. Jinchuriki, Naruto supplied, ancient term flowing naturally from modern lips. Power of human sacrifice, though sacrifice extended beyond mere ritual to encompass lifetime burden. His gaze shifted momentarily to Yujito, something unspoken passing between them, shared experience Michaela recognized but couldn't fully comprehend. The connection matters because Seraph abilities provide unique capacity against dimensional entities, Naruto explained, returning to practical concerns. Divine energy manifests differently than conventional supernatural power. Before Michaela could respond, Shirnoa interrupted with urgent tactical update. Tokyo headquarters reports primary breach. Entity manifestation exceeds previous parameters. Immediate reinforcement requested. Transport circle activates in 3 minutes, Krul announced, gathering her selected nobles with imperial efficiency. European contingent follows secondary pattern to London convergence point. As factions positioned according to destination priorities, Seras found herself aligned with Naruto, Yujito, Michaela and Shirnoa, the Tokyo response team based on capability assessment rather than organizational alignment. Hellsing operative joins Asian defense rather than European. Wilhelm questioned with raised eyebrow. Tactical distribution based on complementary abilities, Naruto explained. Seras's shadow manipulation provides specific advantage against Tokyo manifestation type. The Germanic vampire lord accepted the explanation with aristocratic nod. Blood alliance maintains connection regardless of physical location. Information flows both directions. Final preparations completed as transportation circles activated, ancient symbols illuminated with energy drawn from multiple participants rather than single source. Naruto positioned at the formation center, hands forming complex sequence of signs that blurred with preternatural speed. Flying Thunder God, Alliance Variation, he announced, completing the sequence with deliberate precision. Dimensional pathways open. Space distorted around designated groups, reality folding rather than tearing as conventional teleportation might accomplish. Seras experienced momentary sensory displacement, all perceptions simultaneously compressed and expanded before resolving into new location. Tokyo materialized around them, not the gleaming metropolitan center but Hiragi clan headquarters at the city's ancient heart. Traditional architecture blended with modern defensive installations, creating fortress that honored heritage while acknowledging contemporary threats. Their arrival point, a massive courtyard designed specifically for ritual transportation, showed immediate signs of recent combat. Stone surfaces bore scorch marks from energy discharges, while defensive barrier segments flickered with unstable power fluctuations. Shinoa's professional composure cracked momentarily at seeing her clan's stronghold under assault. Western perimeter breached, she reported, accessing tactical data through communication devices. Entity manifestation progresses beyond containment capability. Expected development, Naruto noted, scanning the surroundings with senses extending beyond conventional perception. Tokyo Convergence Point possesses historical significance beyond current occupation. Historical significance? Krul questioned sharply. This location housed one of the original sealing sites, Naruto explained, moving toward the disturbance with confident familiarity despite never officially visiting Hiragi headquarters. The sage performed primary containment ritual on this ground. That information isn't in any Hiragi record, Shirnoa objected. Because those who knew the truth chose selective documentation, Naruto replied without accusation. Knowledge preservation often requires strategic omission. Further discussion halted as they reached the western compound, scene of active confrontation between Hiragi forces and manifestations similar to what they'd faced in Sanguinum, though varying in configuration and apparent density. Unlike the singular entity that had breached Vampire Fortress, multiple manifestations swarmed through damaged barriers, some maintaining humanoid approximation while others assumed configurations defying anatomical logic. What united them was their fundamental nature, darkness given substance, void-faced and hungry. Classification impossible under conventional taxonomy, Shirnoa noted professionally despite evident concern. Demon weapon effectiveness limited against non-standard manifestation. Hiragi clan fighters demonstrated this limitation directly, their cursed gear connecting with entities but causing minimal disruption to manifested forms. Despite tactical discipline and coordinated attacks, defenders steadily lost ground against overwhelming numbers. Their physical form isn't their actual vulnerability, Naruto explained, assessing battlefield dynamics with practiced eye. Manifestation anchors through dimensional tethers rather than conventional materialization. Then we target the tethers, Krul concluded, signaling her nobles to deploy according to new parameters. Precisely. Naruto turned to their assembled team. Each faction possesses techniques that interact with dimensional boundaries differently. Combined application creates comprehensive disruption. Without further discussion, he launched into coordinated assault that demonstrated centuries of combat experience. Golden chakra manifested around him, not the full-tailed beast cloak from Aokigahara but focused implementation channeled through practiced efficiency. Seras followed his example, shadow arm expanding beyond previous limitations as Blood Alliance enhanced her natural capabilities. Where once she controlled tendrils with conscious effort, now Shadow responded to instinctive command, slicing through dimensional space rather than merely physical manifestations. They react differently to shadow manipulation, she reported, noting how entities recoiled from her attacks while merely reforming after conventional damage. Vulnerability pattern suggests dimensional similarity. Shadow exists partially between realities, Naruto confirmed, his own techniques demonstrating similar effectiveness. Your master understood this principle intuitively, integrating shadow manipulation into vampire abilities beyond traditional bloodlines. Their coordinated assault established defensive perimeter, allowing Hiragi forces to regroup while Krul's nobles deployed according to capability distribution rather than hierarchical position. Michaela demonstrated unexpected effectiveness, her Seraph nature manifesting partial wings that disrupted entity cohesion upon contact. Divine energy remains anathema to void entities, Naruto explained, noting her surprised reaction to her own effectiveness. Seraph modifications access fundamental forces beyond conventional supernatural taxonomy. The battle progressed with increasing coordination as Blood Alliance participants adapted to shared knowledge flowing through their connection. Techniques combined intuitively, Shinoa's demon scythe channeling Krul's blood manipulation, vampire nobles incorporating elements of Naruto's sealing methods into their attacks. Despite their effectiveness, entity numbers continued increasing, dimensional breaches widening beyond containment capacity. For each manifestation disrupted, 3 emerged from widening tiers in reality fabric. Reactive defense proves insufficient, Krul assessed pragmatically. Source requires direct intervention. Agreed, Naruto confirmed, disintegrating several entities with specialized sealing tags. Defensive perimeter establishes while primary team targets breach origin. Shinoa coordinated with her clan members, establishing tactical distribution that maximized available forces. Main dimensional tear locates beneath central repository, the archives housing our oldest records. Targeting knowledge deliberately, Yujito noted grimly. Consistent with global pattern. With battlefront responsibilities delegated to capable commanders, Naruto assembled core team for primary objective, himself, Seras, Krul, Michaela and Shinoa representing crucial capability combinations against dimensional threats. The repository's original foundation predates Hiragi occupation, he explained as they navigated toward central compound. Built upon ritual site the sage established during First Containment War. My family records mention nothing of this history, Shinoa objected, professional curiosity temporarily overriding tactical focus. Because those who built it deliberately obscured its purpose, Naruto replied. Better to appear as simple shrine than advertise containing primordial entity. The central repository presented stark contrast to surrounding damage, an island of perfect preservation amidst chaotic battlefield. Ancient stone structure maintained immaculate condition despite nearby destruction, its walls inscribed with symbols that subtly resisted direct observation. Perception barrier remains active, Naruto noted with evident satisfaction. Original protections maintain integrity despite centuries without maintenance. You've seen this place before, Krul observed shrewdly. Your familiarity exceeds historical knowledge. Naruto's expression shifted momentarily, ancient memory surfacing through carefully maintained composure. I helped build it, he admitted simply. When the world was younger and chakra flowed through all living things. The admission, direct confirmation of his true age, momentarily silenced even Krul's imperial confidence. Before further questions emerged, Naruto approached repository entrance, massive stone doors inscribed with interconnected sealing arrays disguised as decorative patterns. Original access required specific chakra signature, he explained, placing palm against central symbol. Fortunately, some things remain unchanged despite millennia. Golden energy flowed from his hand, illuminating dormant array that responded with vibrant activation. Symbols previously appearing merely decorative revealed functional purpose, security system recognizing authorized access despite centuries of dormancy. The massive doors opened silently, revealing interior untouched by time or external conflict. Unlike conventional archive, the repository contained no visible documents, only circular chamber dominated by central dais where light seemed to bend unnaturally around floating crystalline structure. The Hiragi family's greatest secret, Shinoa whispered, academic fascination overriding professional detachment. The origin crystal are legends reference without explanation. Not crystal, Naruto corrected, approaching the dais. Dimensional fragment, solidified boundary between realities, harvested during original containment war. The structure, appearing crystalline but somehow existing partially beyond normal perception, pulsed with internal light that responded to their presence. Beneath it, floor inscriptions formed massive seal array recognizable as more complex version of what Naruto had demonstrated at Sanguinum. The fragment maintains dimensional stability throughout region, he explained, examining current condition with critical assessment. Or did, until recent boundary weakening. Before further explanation could develop, the chamber shuddered violently, stone foundations cracking as tremendous force applied pressure from beneath. The crystalline fragment's pulsations intensified erratically, stability clearly compromised by external assault. Breach progresses faster than predicted, Yujito noted grimly. Entity concentrates effort on primary containment point. As confirmation of her assessment, darkness flowed upward through cracks in the ancient flooring, not smoke or liquid but same material substance as entities they'd confronted, though considerably denser in manifestation. The darkness pooled beneath the floating fragment, forming column that reached upward with apparent purpose. Direct assault on boundary stabilizer, Naruto identified, immediately forming complex seal sequence with practiced hands. Containment priority shifts from entities to primary breach. How? Seras questioned practically, shadow arm extending protectively around the crystalline fragment. If that's dimensional boundary, conventional attacks won't affect whatever exists partially beyond it. Correct assessment, Naruto acknowledged. Which requires unconventional response. Without further explanation, he bit his thumb deeply, blood flowing with unusual freedom compared to normal vampire limitations. The blood itself glowed with internal light as he traced complex patterns directly onto the chamber floor, expanding the existing seal array with additional components. Uzumaki blood seal, dimensional reinforcement, he announced, completing pattern that illuminated with brilliant intensity. Temporary stabilization while permanent solution implements. The blood-inscribed seal pulsed outward, creating visible barrier around the crystal fragment. Darkness attacking from below recoiled momentarily before intensifying assault, void substance flowing with apparent intelligence rather than mindless force. Temporary measure at best, Krul assessed practically. Entity adapts to containment methodology with concerning speed. Because it remembers previous encounters, Naruto confirmed. Each cycle adds to its understanding of our defensive capabilities. Michaela approached the crystal fragment, her Seraph nature visibly responding to its presence, subtle wing manifestation occurring despite her conscious control. This feels familiar somehow. Like something recognizes it through my blood. Seraph modifications utilize dimensional boundary principles without understanding their origin, Naruto explained, maintaining seal reinforcement through continuous chakra application. Human researchers rediscover techniques without comprehending fundamental theories behind them. The chamber shuddered again, more violently than before. Darkness penetrating the floor expanded dramatically, no longer merely seeping through cracks but actively disintegrating stone to create wider access. Containment failure imminent, Shinoa reported, consulting monitoring devices that displayed rapidly deteriorating parameters. Estimated breach completion in minutes rather than hours. Then we implement secondary protocol, Naruto decided, turning to his assembled team. Blood Alliance provides necessary components for reinforcement beyond individual capability. You propose combining our abilities through blood connection, Krul surmised, Imperial intellect quickly grasping implications. Precisely. Naruto gestured toward the crystal fragment. The boundary stabilizer responds to specific energy signatures, Sage Chakra originally, but compatible variations exist within each faction's capabilities. With methodical precision despite escalating situation, he directed team positioning around the fragment, placing each participant according to their unique energy signature rather than conventional tactical formation. Seras, your shadow manipulation represents boundary interaction most similar to original containment method, he instructed. Position directly beneath fragment to establish primary connection. The Hellsing operative complied without objection, professional focus overriding organizational loyalty as situation demanded unified response. Her shadow arm extended upward, connecting directly with the crystal fragment, creating immediate reaction as darkness within her power resonated with boundary properties. Krul, blood manipulation establishes secondary support, Naruto continued, positioning the vampire queen at precise angle relative to the fragment. Your lineage descends most directly from original containment participants. As the third progenitor took position, Naruto completed arrangement with remaining participants, Shinoa's demon weapon providing specific frequency modulation, Michaela's Seraph nature contributing divine energy component, Yujito's modified Bijou connection offering stability through experience. The ritual requires synchronized energy contribution, he explained, taking central position that completed geometric pattern. Blood alliance facilitates harmonization beyond conscious coordination. As darkness beneath continued expanding, entity manifestation growing steadily more substantial, Naruto initiated sequence that activated their combined potential. Golden chakra flowed outward from his position, connecting with each participant through pathways established by shared blood. Boundary. Reinforcement, alliance variation, he announced, completing activation sequence with precise hand movements. Dimensional stabilization initiates through composite energy matrix. The effect manifested immediately, each participant's unique energy signature illuminating with distinctive coloration before harmonizing into cohesive whole. Seras's shadow deepened and expanded, incorporating blood-red elements from Krul, purplish demon energy from Shinoa, brilliant white-blue from Michaela's Seraph nature, and flowing golden power from Naruto himself. Their combined energy flowed upward into the crystal fragment, which responded with dramatically intensified illumination, boundary properties visibly strengthening as dimensional tear beneath their position began reluctantly contracting rather than expanding. It's working, Shinoa observed with professional assessment. Breach containment parameters improving beyond projection models. Temporary advantage, Naruto cautioned, maintaining precise chakra control despite evident strain. Entity adapts quickly to conventional containment methods. As if confirming his warning, darkness beneath the floor suddenly shifted tactics, no longer attacking boundary directly but flowing around ritual formation to coalesce behind participants. The void substance gathered density and definition, forming approximation of humanoid shape that towered over even Seras's considerable height. Predictable response, Fox Sage, the entity intoned, voice emanating from atmosphere rather than apparent form. Repetition of previous cycle tactics. Unlike manifestations they'd confronted previously, this entity projected clarity and focus suggesting higher intelligence, not merely scout or soldier but commanding presence within dimensional hierarchy. Recognition goes both ways, Naruto responded without breaking ritual concentration. Your adaptation follows expected parameters as well, Void Herald. The entity, addressed specifically rather than generically, oriented toward Naruto with terrible precision. Name assignment attempts dimensional classification upon boundless existence. Limitation through terminology. Terminology facilitates understanding, Naruto countered. Understanding precedes effective interaction. The exchange, bizarre diplomatic negotiation amidst literal reality breach, continued while ritual participants maintained boundary reinforcement despite growing strain. Through blood alliance connection, information transferred regarding the entity's nature and previous encounters throughout history. Its testing responses, Krul realized, Imperial intellect quickly assessing tactical implications. Catalog defense capabilities before committing primary forces. Standard protocol across previous emergence cycles, Naruto confirmed. though current manifestation exceeds historical precedent in coherence and sustainability. The entity observed their exchange with apparent interest, void face shifting through approximations of expressions without achieving genuine mimicry. Blood connection established between fragments. Interesting adaptation since previous encounter. Its attention shifted deliberately toward Michaela, whose seraph nature visibly intensified under direct observation. Divine element corrupted through human manipulation. Fascinating deviation from natural progression. The focused attention triggered involuntary response, Michaela's wings manifesting more substantially as defensive reaction against perceived threat. The sudden energy surge disrupted ritual synchronization momentarily, creating fluctuation that the entity immediately exploited. Darkness flowed through momentary weakness in their formation, striking directly at the crystal fragment with concentrated force. The boundary stabilizer shuddered violently, internal light flickering as dimensional properties destabilized under targeted assault. Containment compromised, Chernoa reported urgently. Breach expands beyond secondary parameters. Adaptation required, Naruto acknowledged, adjusting. Ritual configuration without breaking overall formation. Seras, shadow integration with Michaela's divine manifestation. Krul, blood reinforcement through direct contribution. The Hellsing operative responded intuitively, shadow arm enveloping Michaela's unstable wing manifestation, providing structure that channeled rather than suppressed the Seraph energy. Krul simultaneously bit her wrist with imperial precision, directing blood flow that incorporated itself into composite barrier. Their coordinated adaptation produced immediate effect, boundary reinforcement recovering stability through complementary energy integration rather than uniform application. The entity's assault encountered renewed resistance, darkness recoiling from harmonized barrier. Inevitable delay through technical adaptation, the entity acknowledged without apparent concern. Time measurement irrelevant to final outcome. Perhaps, Naruto conceded, maintaining ritual focus despite conversation. Or perhaps adaptation itself represents outcome your perspective cannot anticipate. The philosophical exchange continued, bizarre negotiation between ancient powers while dimensional fabric itself trembled around them. Through blood connection, participants received contextual understanding beyond verbal communication, impressions of previous encounters throughout history, cycles of emergence and containment spanning millennia. You fought this entity before, Seras realized, insight flowing through blood-shared understanding. Multiple times across different eras. Not fought, contained, Naruto corrected, adjusting energy distribution as situation evolved. Destruction proves impossible against something existing partially beyond conventional reality. Then what purpose does current containment serve? Krul questioned pragmatically. If permanent solution remains unachievable. Evolution through necessity, Naruto replied cryptically. Each cycle advances both entity understanding and containment methodology. Before further explanation could develop, the chamber shuddered violently as external attack intensified, entity manifestations from throughout compound converging on central repository as those summoned by their commanding presence. Perimeter defenses overwhelmed, Chernoa reported, receiving tactical updates through communication devices. Entity convergence pattern suggests coordinated assault rather than random aggression. Expected development, Naruto confirmed. Herald summons lesser manifestations to concentrate force against primary containment point. The entity's form expanded dramatically, darkness flowing upward along chamber walls, ceiling dissolving into void substance as dimensional boundaries thinned throughout structure. What began as humanoid approximation transformed into environmental consumption, repository itself becoming extension of entity presence. Resistance measured and catalogued, it announced, voice now emanating from entire structure rather than localized manifestation. Primary phase concludes. Convergence timeline advances. With sudden decisiveness, darkness retracted, flowing back through dimensional tear with unexpected speed. The assault ceased completely, entity manifestations throughout compounds similarly withdrawing as though responding to unified command. There, retreating. Michaela questioned uncertainly, wings gradually subsiding as immediate threat diminished. Strategic withdrawal rather than defeat, Naruto clarified, maintaining boundary reinforcement despite apparent enemy departure. Information gathering concluded, tactical assessment completed. They accomplished their objective, Krul realized, Imperial comprehension quickly grasping implications. This entire assault represented reconnaissance rather than conquest attempt. Precisely. Naruto finally relaxed ritual formation as dimensional tier sealed completely, temporary victory achieved despite ominous implications. The Herald catalogued our defensive capabilities, adaptation methodology, and alliance. Composition. For what purpose? Seras questioned practically. Naruto's expression darkened with ancient knowledge. Preparation for primary emergence. What we faced represents merely advance forces, dimensional scouts establishing parameters before true invasion begins. The repository settled into uneasy silence as entity presence disappeared completely, dimensional boundaries temporarily stabilized through their combined effort. Through blood alliance connection, unspoken understanding flowed between participants, recognition that apparent victory merely postponed inevitable confrontation. The Herald mentioned convergence timeline, Shinoa noted, professional assessment focusing on practical implications. Suggesting scheduled rather than opportunistic emergence. Cosmic alignment facilitates dimensional thinning, Naruto confirmed. Previous cycles corresponded with specific celestial configurations, what ancient texts called, when stars align, literally rather than figuratively. And current alignment? Krul questioned sharply. Reaches maximum convergence in 3 days, Naruto replied grimly. When dimensional boundaries thin beyond natural resistance. The information settled heavily across gathered allies, timeframe establishing urgent priority beyond organizational differences or territorial concerns. 3 days to prepare against entities we barely understand, Seras summarized pragmatically. Entities that apparently adapt to our defensive methods with concerning speed. 3 days to implement countermeasures beyond conventional containment, Naruto corrected, his expression shifting from concern to determined resolve. Adaptation works both directions. What we learned today provides implementation parameters for permanent solution. You mentioned permanent solution previously, Michaela noted. Yet also stated destruction proves impossible against transdimensional entities. Destruction, yes, Naruto acknowledged. But reconfiguration remains viable alternative, transformation rather than elimination. You propose changing fundamental nature of hostile entity? Shinoa questioned skeptically. That exceeds known capability of any supernatural technique in Hiragi archives. Because those archives document observed results without understanding fundamental principles, Naruto explained, approaching the crystal fragment with evident purpose. The boundary stabilizer contains more than dimensional reinforcement, it houses template for energy transformation. He placed his palm directly against the crystalline surface, which responded with intensified illumination, internal patterns shifting from random pulsation to organized configuration. The sage created this fragment during original containment war, he continued, activating dormant functions through specialized chakra application. Not merely as barrier but as conversion matrix, template for transforming hostile energy into compatible format. The fragment's illumination formed recognizable pattern, geometric configuration resembling complex seal arrays similar to what Naruto had demonstrated previously, though considerably more intricate in composition. Original conversion required sacrifice beyond acceptable parameters, he explained, studying activated template with critical assessment. The sage himself provided catalyst, merging with entity partially to establish compatibility matrix. Self-sacrifice to transform hostile force, Krul noted, imperial intellect quickly grasping implications. Noble but ultimately temporary solution, judging by current situation. Precisely. Naruto turned to his assembled team, ancient determination evident beneath youthful appearance. Which requires improved methodology through combined experience rather than individual sacrifice. Blood Alliance provides framework beyond original parameters, Yujito added, completing his thought pattern through centuries of shared understanding. distributed contribution rather than singular catalyst. As repositories stabilized around them, Hiragi forces securing perimeter while Krul's nobles reinforced defensive positions, Naruto outlined implementation strategy that incorporated lessons from current confrontation alongside historical knowledge spanning millennia. 3 days for preparation, he concluded, determination replacing previous concern. 3 days to refine conversion matrix utilizing Blood Alliance framework rather than individual sacrifice. And if preparation proves insufficient? Krul challenged pragmatically. If convergence proceeds beyond containment capability? Naruto's expression reflected ancient resolve that had defined his existence since humanity first discovered chakra manipulation. Then adaptation continues through whatever means necessary. Survival requires evolution beyond conventional limitations. As they departed damaged repository, returning to Tactical Command Center where global coordination continued through Blood Alliance connection, Seras found herself walking alongside Naruto, momentary isolation allowing direct question without broader audience. "You've faced this before," she observed quietly. "Not just the entity but the entire scenario, convergence, containment, temporary victory followed by renewed threat. Cycles repeat with variations," he acknowledged. "Though current circumstances exceed previous parameters considerably." "How many times," she pressed, professional assessment requiring context beyond diplomatic vagueness. Naruto's expression shifted momentarily, ancient weariness visible beneath carefully maintained composure. 7 complete cycles since original containment war. Each progressively more complex as human development altered dimensional interaction parameters. "And how many times have you succeeded permanently?" Seras continued, tactical directness cutting through diplomatic courtesy. His eyes met hers directly, blue depths containing memories beyond human comprehension yet somehow maintaining compassionate warmth despite millennia of struggle. "Success remains relative concept when facing eternal adversary," he replied with surprising candor. "Permanent victory eludes conventional definition when existence itself operates cyclically." The answer, philosophical rather than tactical, nonetheless conveyed essential truth through blood-shared understanding. Their confrontation represented not isolated incident but ongoing struggle between fundamental forces, order versus chaos, dimensional integrity versus convergence, discrete existence versus unified void. "Then we adapt," Seras concluded pragmatically, surprising herself with resolute acceptance where professional skepticism might normally predominate. "Evolution through necessity, as you said." Something like approval flickered in Naruto's ancient eyes, recognition of kindred determination despite vastly different origins. Precisely why Blood Alliance included Hellsing representation specifically. "Adaptation defines your existence as much as mine, human conscience preserved through vampire transformation." The unexpected compliment, delivered matter-of-factly rather than manipulatively, resonated with Seras's core identity. Through blood connection, she glimpsed fragmented impression of Naruto's assessment, genuine respect rather than tactical flattery, recognition of shared values despite different manifestations. As they rejoined larger gathering where tactical planning proceeded with renewed urgency, Seras noticed subtle shifts in relationships between Blood Alliance participants, political maneuvering gradually yielding to pragmatic cooperation as shared understanding deepened through strengthened connection. Naruto moved through these evolving dynamics with surprising diplomacy, neither imposing authority through power demonstration nor withdrawing from leadership role when guidance proved necessary. His approach balanced respect for established hierarchies with practical necessity, offering direction without demanding compliance. Krul observed this methodology with evident reassessment, imperial authority temporarily subordinated to tactical necessity as situation evolved beyond conventional parameters. When opportunity presented itself, she approached Naruto directly during momentary isolation from broader planning session. "Your leadership style defies conventional vampire hierarchy," she noted without obvious judgment. "Authority without dominance, guidance without subjugation. Hierarchy based solely on power measurement creates inherently unstable structure," Naruto replied thoughtfully. "Sustainable leadership emerges from mutual respect rather than enforced compliance." The third progenitor studied him with calculating assessment, centuries of political maneuvering providing framework for evaluating unfamiliar methodology. An unusual perspective for the progenitor king. I never claimed that title, Naruto reminded her gently. Others assigned classification based on their understanding rather than my intention. Yet power sufficient for dominance remains undeniable, Krul countered. Why reject authority your capability naturally commands? Something like sadness flickered across Naruto's features, ancient memory surfacing briefly before submerging beneath practiced composure. Because true strength protects rather than dominates. A lesson learned through centuries of observation rather than theoretical philosophy. The statement, simple yet profound, resonated unexpectedly with Krul's carefully concealed personal history. Through blood connection, fragmentary understanding transferred, imperial authority assumed not through ambition but necessity, power accumulated as protection measure rather than conquest methodology. Your blood contains unusual memories, she observed, imperial composure momentarily disrupted by unexpected resonance. Impressions contradicting conventional vampire nature. Nature remains choice rather than predestination, Naruto replied. For vampires as much as humans or entities beyond conventional classification. Before conversation could deepen further, tactical planning resumed with renewed urgency, global coordination establishing implementation parameters for countermeasures against impending convergence. As night deepened toward dawn, Blood Alliance participants separated according to immediate responsibilities, some securing knowledge repositories, others coordinating defensive deployments, still others researching implementation methodology for conversion matrix. 3 days remained before cosmic alignment reached maximum convergence, 3 days to prepare against forces that transcended conventional understanding. Whether adaptation proved sufficient against eternal adversary remained uncertain, but determination unified formally. Disparate factions into cohesive response beyond previous cycles' capabilities. The Blood Alliance strengthened through shared purpose, evolution through necessity as ancient as existence itself. Chapter 3, Convergence of Fate. Dawn broke over London with unnatural brilliance, sunlight fracturing through dimensional tiers that hovered like crystalline wounds in reality's fabric. Tower Bridge stood silhouetted against this distorted sunrise, ancient stone and modern steel alike warped slightly where spatial boundaries thinned. Civilians had long since evacuated, leaving England's capital an eerie urban wasteland where only combatants remained. Sir Integra Fairbrook Wingate's Hellsing surveyed this transformed cityscape from headquarters command center, cigar smoke curling around her impassive features. Military precision defined her bearing despite 72 hours without rest, her iconic suit immaculate even as the world fractured around her. Dimensional breaches expand according to projected timeline, she noted, reviewing data scrolling across multiple monitors. All global convergence points show identical acceleration patterns. Beside her, Seras Victoria nodded grimly. Cosmic alignment reaches maximum convergence in 6 hours, sir. The Blood Alliance preparations proceed at all primary sites. Blood Alliance, Integra repeated, slight emphasis suggesting continued skepticism despite tactical necessity. An unprecedented arrangement with entities Hellsing was established to destroy. Unprecedented threats require adaptation beyond conventional parameters, came a voice from the doorway, calm, measured, carrying authority that belied its owner's youthful appearance. Naruto Uzumaki entered the command center with fluid grace, traditional Haori contrasting with the room's military sterility. Behind him followed Yujito, her predatory alertness scanning the facility with instinctive assessment. Professor Uzumaki, Integra acknowledged with crisp formality. Your reputation precedes you substantially. As does yours, Sir Hellsing, Naruto returned with respectful nod. Your grandfather's contributions during the 1944 London incursion remain significant historical benchmark. Something flashed across Integra's composed features, surprise quickly masked behind professional detachment. Few remember Arthur Hellsing's involvement in supernatural containment during the Blitz. Fewer still recognize its significance beyond conventional historical records. I remember those who stand against darkness when others retreat, Naruto replied simply. regardless which century they occupied. The statement, casually confirming his extraordinary longevity, hung momentarily in the antiseptic air before Integra dismissed its implications with pragmatic focus. London convergence point stabilizes temporarily, she reported, gesturing toward tactical displays. Though underlying metrics suggest imminent deterioration regardless of containment efforts. Expected development, Naruto confirmed, studying monitoring data with practiced assessment. Final preparation phase proceeds accordingly. And this final phase requires my organization's most valuable asset, Integra noted, steel entering her tone. An asset previously deployed only under circumstances of absolute necessity. Before Naruto could respond, the command center's atmosphere shifted perceptibly, temperature dropping several degrees as shadows deepened despite harsh fluorescent lighting. From the far wall, darkness pooled unnaturally, coalescing into towering figure whose presence dominated the space through sheer malevolent charisma. Alucard materialized fully, crimson duster flowing around his imposing frame, orange spectacles gleaming with internal light that belied their opacity. His perpetual smile, predatory and amused simultaneously, widened as he surveyed the room's occupants. The fox emerges from his den at last, he observed, voice resonating with unnatural depth. How many centuries since Budapest, sage? 4. 5. 4 centuries, 3 decades. 17 days, Naruto replied without hesitation. The Ottoman siege where a certain impaled prince nearly met his final death. Alucard's smile widened further, impossibly, inhumanly. My memory suggested yellow flash rather than golden fox. Curious how perspectives shift across centuries. Adaptation defines survival, Naruto responded with subtle humor. Something we both understand through different methodologies. The exchange, casual reference to events centuries past, confirmed relationship beyond Integra's extensive knowledge of her servant's history. Her tactical mind rapidly recalculated parameters based on this revelation, professional assessment incorporating new variables without emotional distraction. If reminiscence concludes, she interjected dryly, perhaps discussion might address current strategic necessities. Of course, Naruto acknowledged, returning to pragmatic focus. The convergence matrix requires specific energy signatures unavailable through conventional sources. Alucard's unique connection to primordial darkness provides essential component. You propose utilizing my servant in ritual capacity, Integra summarized bluntly. Rather than combat deployment where his effectiveness remains quantifiably superior. I propose balanced application utilizing his capabilities optimally, Naruto corrected. The ritual component enhances combat effectiveness rather than replacing it. Alucard circled the room with predatory assessment, crimson eyes evaluating Naruto and Yujito with ancient calculation beneath theatrical presentation. The Blood King offers cooperation rather than dominance, he observed with evident amusement. How philosophically inconsistent with vampire nature. Yet tactically optimal given circumstances, Integra noted pragmatically. The Blood Alliance already demonstrates effectiveness beyond conventional methodologies. She gestured toward monitoring displays where global coordination proceeded with unprecedented efficiency, vampire factions alongside hunter organizations, ancestral enemies united through blood-shared understanding transcending traditional boundaries. Your fledgling performs admirably within this arrangement, Alucard acknowledged, nodding toward Seras with subtle approval. Adaptation beyond initial parameters. Police girl always contained potential beyond convenient classification, Naruto observed, using Alucard's familiar address with deliberate casualness. Her contribution proves essential to convergence matrix stabilization. The compliment, delivered matter-of-factly rather than manipulatively, earned assessing glance from Integra and predatory smile from Alucard. Through Blood Alliance connection, Seras received fragmentary impression behind Naruto's statement, genuine recognition rather than tactical flattery, appreciation for qualities often overlooked by her own organization. The convergence proceeds regardless of philosophical debate, Yujito interjected practically. Final preparations require immediate implementation rather than extended discussion. Agreed, Integra concurred, tactical pragmatism overriding institutional skepticism. Hellsing resources deploy according to alliance parameters, with specific exception regarding Alucard's participation. Exception? Naruto questioned. My servant maintains direct connection to me alone, Integra clarified with steel beneath cultured tones. Blood alliance participation occurs through me rather than direct incorporation. Naruto nodded acceptance without objection. Understandable parameter given historical context. Implementation adapts accordingly. With tactical decisions established, preparation proceeded with military precision, Hellsing forces integrating with Blood Alliance deployment across London's convergence zone. Monitoring systems track dimensional stability with increasingly sophisticated metrics, adaptation incorporating knowledge shared through unprecedented cooperation between formerly isolated organizations. As command center activity intensified around them, Alucard approached Naruto directly, physical proximity deliberate given vampiric disregard for conventional personal space. Budapest, he stated quietly, crimson eyes meeting ancient blue directly. You intervened despite genocidal behavior that should have repulsed sage sensibilities. I recognized warrior beneath monster, Naruto replied simply. Potential beyond bloody reputation. Something flashed across Alucard's theatrical presentation, genuine emotion quickly submerged beneath cultivated persona. Sentiment from the Blood King. How disappointingly human. Humanity remains choice rather than biological classification, Naruto countered without heat. Something we both understand through different experiences. Before conversation could deepen further, command center alarms activated with urgent priority, monitoring systems detecting dramatic acceleration in dimensional destabilization parameters. Convergence timeline accelerates beyond projection, Seras reported, professional focus instantly replacing previous conversational demeanor. Cosmic alignment affects dimensional boundaries exponentially rather than linearly. Expected development, Naruto confirmed, reviewing data with practiced assessment. Final phase initiates immediately rather than according to previous schedule. Integra processed tactical implications with military efficiency, issuing deployment orders that reflected Blood Alliance parameters while maintaining Hellsing operational protocols. Throughout this coordinated chaos, Naruto observed her leadership methodology with evident respect, recognition of capability transcending organizational boundaries. Global communication channels establish priority connection, Yujito reported, coordinating with Alliance participants worldwide. Tokyo Convergence Team confirms acceleration pattern identical to London parameters. Germanic contingent reports similar development throughout European sites, Seras added, managing multiple information streams simultaneously. Wilhelm implements containment protocols according to established framework. As preparation transitioned to active deployment, Naruto approached the command center's tactical display, holographic representation showing dimensional breach patterns across global convergence points. With practiced assessment, he identified essential pattern underlying apparent chaos. The convergence follows specific geometric progression, he explained, highlighting key nodes within global distribution. 9 primary emergence points corresponding to original containment locations. 9 points, Integra noted with tactical precision. Matching tailed beast distribution. In historical records. Precisely, Naruto confirmed, appreciation flickering across his features at her unexpected knowledge. The original sealing utilized Bijou chakra as stabilizing counterpoint against dimensional entities, which necessitates corresponding energy distribution in current containment methodology, Integra concluded, tactical mind rapidly processing implications. Hence 9 distinct teams at 9 locations globally. 8 locations physically, Naruto corrected. The 9th convergence occurs beyond conventional dimensional parameters, metaphysical rather than geographical. Alucard's perpetual smile widened with genuine amusement. The space between spaces, he observed cryptically. Where shadow touches void. Where boundaries themselves originated, Naruto confirmed. The center point requiring specialized access methodology. Understanding flowed between Blood Alliance participants without requiring extensive explanation, shared knowledge transferring tactical implications alongside technical details. Deployment proceeded with unprecedented coordination across traditional boundaries, former enemies operating with unified purpose beyond historical precedent. The London Convergence team assembles according to capability distribution, Integra announced, reviewing final preparations with clinical detachment. Hellsing forces integrated with Alliance parameters despite institutional reservations. Adaptation defines survival, Naruto acknowledged, recognizing significant concession behind her formal statement. Institutional flexibility demonstrates leadership beyond conventional parameters. The subtle compliment, delivered as tactical observation rather than personal flattery, earned assessing glance from Integra, whose composure revealed nothing beyond professional focus. Through blood connection, however, Seras detected momentary appreciation behind her commander's impassive exterior, recognition rarely expressed through conventional communication. Final preparations concluded as dawn fully illuminated London's transformed skyline, dimensional tiers now visible to normal human perception as reality itself thinned beyond natural stability. The Convergence team assembled at Tower Bridge, strategic deployment point chosen for both practical and symbolic significance within London's supernatural geography. Alucard manifested his full combat configuration, darkness flowing around his imposing form, familiars stirring beneath crimson duster with hungry anticipation. Beside him, Seras activated her Shadow Arm's enhanced capabilities, Blood Alliance connection strengthening her natural abilities beyond previous limitations. Integra maintained command position with military bearing, tactically removed from direct confrontation yet connected through Blood Alliance to global coordination efforts. Her strategic mind processed multiple information streams simultaneously, adapting deployment parameters as situation evolved beyond initial projections. Naruto and Yujito completed London's primary team, their ancient experience providing contextual understanding beyond organizational knowledge bases. Together, they represented capability distribution specifically configured for London's unique convergence parameters. The Herald approaches, Naruto announced moments before conventional detection systems activated, sensing entity presence through connection transcending technological monitoring. Initial manifestation exceeds previous encounter parameters considerably. As confirmation of his assessment, dimensional tiers widened dramatically above Tower Bridge, reality fracturing like shattered glass as darkness flowed through widening breach. Unlike previous manifestations, this emergence proceeded with deliberate precision rather than chaotic expansion, intelligent deployment rather than instinctive materialization. The Herald manifested fully, towering void entity assuming humanoid configuration that dwarfed surrounding architecture. Its form rippled with unnatural motion, darkness flowing like liquid while maintaining structural cohesion beyond conventional physics. Fox Sage, it intoned, voice emanating from atmosphere rather than apparent form. Final cycle progresses according to established parameters. Final implies conclusion, Naruto replied, neither intimidated nor aggressive despite overwhelming presence before him. Presumptuous assessment given historical precedent. Cosmic alignment exceeds previous cycle parameters, the entity countered. Boundary degradation progresses beyond reversible threshold. As if demonstrating this claim, dimensional tiers expanded throughout visible skyline, reality fracturing exponentially rather than incrementally as cosmic forces aligned beyond natural stability. Through these widening breaches poured lesser manifestations, void entities assuming various configurations as they established presence within material dimension. Deployment pattern suggests strategic distribution rather than random materialization, Integra assessed professionally. Intelligence directing lesser entities according to tactical objective. The Herald functions as command presence, Naruto confirmed. Coordinating manifestation pattern to maximize dimensional disruption rather than simply establishing physical presence. Alucard's perpetual smile widened with genuine anticipation, predatory instinct recognizing worthy adversary despite unusual nature. Physical manifestation suggests vulnerability despite transdimensional origin, he observed, crimson eyes evaluating entity composition with ancient calculation. Corporeal presence requires corporeal limitations. Partial limitation only, Naruto cautioned. Physical form represents interface rather than actual vulnerability. As their tactical assessment proceeded, the herald observed with evident interest, void face shifting through approximations of expressions without achieving genuine mimicry. Lesser manifestations continued emerging through widening breaches, establishing presence throughout London's convergence zone while avoiding direct confrontation with assembled team. Containment methodology evolves beyond previous cycle parameters, the entity noted, attention focusing on blood alliance connections visible to its transdimensional perception. Interesting adaptation through biological integration rather than external application. Evolution through necessity, Naruto replied, maintaining conversational approach despite escalating manifestations surrounding them. Adaptation defines survival regardless of dimensional origin. The philosophical exchange, bizarre negotiation between ancient powers while reality fractured around them, continued momentarily before tactical necessity required direct engagement. Lesser manifestations began targeting specific locations throughout London, knowledge repositories, historical sites, locations with particular significance within supernatural geography. Entity deployment targets information centers specifically, Seras reported, tracking manifestation pattern through blood alliance connection. Consistent with previous encounter objectives. Knowledge destruction precedes physical conquest, Integra concluded. Standard tactical approach when facing informed opposition. With operational parameters established, London's convergence team engaged according to capability distribution, Alucard's familiars deploying against lesser manifestations while Seras utilized enhanced shadow manipulation against dimensional tears themselves. Naruto and Yujito implemented specialized containment techniques focusing on breach stabilization rather than entity elimination. The battle progressed with tactical precision despite chaotic environment, blood alliance connection facilitating coordination beyond conventional communication methods. Throughout London, similar engagement occurred as Hellsing forces integrated with alliance participants from multiple factions, vampire nobles alongside human hunters, ancestral enemies united through unprecedented cooperation. Through blood connection, Naruto monitored similar confrontations globally, Tokyo team engaging manifestations throughout Hiragi compound, Germanic contingent defending European convergence points, hunter organizations coordinating with vampire factions across continental boundaries. Each location faced unique challenges according to local dimensional parameters, yet fundamental pattern remained consistent throughout global distribution. The Herald observes our defensive methodology, Yujito noted, implementing specialized sealing technique against widening breach. Cataloging adaptation for subsequent countermeasures. Expected behavior, Naruto confirmed, his own techniques focusing on dimensional stabilization rather than entity elimination. Information gathering precedes primary offensive regardless of encounter parameters. As battle intensity increased around them, the Herald maintained observational distance, command presence directing lesser manifestations while assessing defensive capabilities with calculating intelligence. Its void form expanded gradually, darkness flowing outward to encompass widening territory as dimensional boundaries thinned beyond natural stability. Fox Sage, it addressed Naruto directly, voice resonating with unnatural depth. Your containment methodology demonstrates interesting evolution since previous cycle. Technique refinement through cumulative experience rather than fundamental innovation. Innovation emerges through practical application, Naruto countered, maintaining conversational approach despite combat intensity surrounding them. Theory without implementation remains merely hypothetical. The philosophical exchange continued, bizarre intellectual engagement amidst literal reality fracture, while combat proceeded with increasing intensity throughout London's convergence zone. Through blood alliance connection, participants shared tactical insights across traditional boundaries, vampire nobles implementing techniques derived from hunter methodologies, human organizations utilizing approaches previously exclusive to supernatural factions. As cosmic alignment approached maximum convergence, dimensional stability deteriorated exponentially, reality fracturing beyond containment capability despite unprecedented cooperation between formerly isolated factions. The Herald's presence expanded dramatically, void form flowing throughout London's convergence zone like living darkness claiming territory through methodical absorption. Conventional containment proves insufficient against accelerating deterioration, Integra assessed professionally, monitoring global parameters through command position. Alternative methodology becomes necessary regardless of organizational preference. Precisely why the convergence matrix was developed, Naruto agreed, completing specialized sealing sequence before addressing assembled team directly. Final implementation phase initiates according to Blood Alliance parameters. Through their shared connection, understanding transferred beyond verbal communication, tactical implications alongside technical details, procedural requirements alongside philosophical underpinnings. London's convergence team repositioned according to geometric necessity, specific arrangement corresponding to dimensional mathematics transcending conventional spatial relationships. The matrix utilizes Blood Alliance connections as foundational framework, Naruto explained, establishing central position within formation. Individual energy signatures harmonized through shared purpose rather than external synchronization. Utilizing biological connection to establish metaphysical framework, Integra summarized with clinical precision. Elegant solution given implementation constraints. With methodical coordination, London's team established primary configuration, Alucard providing shadow component, Seras contributing harmonized vampire-human hybrid energy, Integra offering tactical coordination through command position, Yujito stabilizing through Bijou-derived equilibrium. At Formation Center, Naruto initiated sequence that activated their combined potential, golden chakra flowing outward through pathways established by shared blood. Unlike conventional energy manipulation, this implementation utilized connection itself as functional component, relationship rather than merely technical application. Convergence matrix, London configuration, he announced, completing activation sequence with precise hand movements. Dimensional stabilization initiates through composite energy integration. The effect manifested immediately, each participant's unique energy signature illuminating with distinctive coloration before harmonizing into cohesive whole. Alucard's darkness deepened and structured, incorporating golden elements from Naruto, crimson components from Integra's command presence, purplish-blue from Seras's hybrid nature, and flowing silver from Yujito's Bijou-derived stability. Their combined energy expanded outward, not merely affecting local environment but establishing connection with corresponding formations at other global convergence points. Through Blood Alliance parameters, London's configuration synchronized with Tokyo's implementation, Germanic contingents deployment, and other teams positioned at critical locations worldwide. The Herald observed this development with evident calculation, void face shifting through expression suggesting intellectual assessment rather than emotional reaction. Its darkness flowed around matrix formation without directly engaging, testing boundaries through proximity rather than aggressive penetration. Interesting methodology, it acknowledged, attention focusing on energy pattern with transdimensional perception. Utilizing biological integration to establish metaphysical framework. Evolution beyond previous cycle parameters. Adaptation defines survival, Naruto replied, maintaining matrix stabilization while engaging philosophical exchange. Principle applying equally across dimensional boundaries. As cosmic alignment approached maximum convergence, matrix formations worldwide synchronized through Blood Alliance connection, 9 distinct configurations establishing geometric relationship corresponding to original containment methodology. Through this unprecedented cooperation, dimensional stability temporarily reinforced despite continuing degradation beyond natural parameters. Containment established temporarily, Integra reported, monitoring global metrics through command position. Though underlying parameters suggest imminent breakthrough regardless of current implementation. Temporary stabilization provides implementation window for permanent solution, Naruto confirmed. Matrix formation establishes necessary framework for conversion sequence rather than merely reinforcing boundaries. The conversation paused as dimensional tiers pulsed violently, cosmic alignment reaching critical threshold beyond conventional stability. Throughout London's convergence zone, reality fractured exponentially, buildings warping where spatial boundaries failed, physical laws fluctuating within affected areas, gravitational inconsistencies manifesting as localized anomalies. Similar effects occurred globally, Tokyo experiencing temporal distortions alongside physical deterioration, European sites developing spatial recursion within convergence zones, other locations manifesting unique anomalies according to local dimensional parameters. The Herald's presence expanded dramatically as cosmic alignment maximized, void form flowing throughout affected areas like living darkness claiming territory through methodical absorption. Lesser manifestations converged toward primary formation, their individual presence subordinated to unified purpose directed by command intelligence. Primary phase concludes, the entity announced, voice resonating with terrible finality. Boundary dissolution progresses beyond reversible threshold. Convergence completes regardless of containment methodology. As confirmation of this assessment, dimensional tiers expanded beyond matrix containment capability, reality fracturing irrevocably as cosmic forces aligned beyond natural stability. Throughout London, physical environment distorted beyond recognition, architectural structures warping where spatial boundaries failed completely, gravitational inconsistencies creating localized anomalies where conventional physics no longer applied. Through Blood Alliance connection, Naruto monitored similar deterioration globally, each convergence point experiencing unique manifestation according to local parameters yet following consistent pattern throughout distribution. Matrix formations maintain temporary stability despite accelerating degradation, providing implementation window for permanent solution despite overwhelming environmental dissolution. Conversion sequence initiates according to established parameters, he announced, addressing both local team and global participants through blood connection. Matrix stabilization transitions to transformation methodology as dimensional boundaries reach dissolution threshold. Understanding flowed between alliance participants without requiring extensive explanation, shared knowledge transferring tactical implications alongside technical details. Each convergence team adjusted formation accordingly, transitioning from containment configuration to transformation methodology through subtle repositioning based on geometric necessity. The transformation utilizes boundary dissolution as functional component, Naruto explained, adapting central position within reconfigured formation. Converting destructive potential into constructive application through dimensional mathematics. Utilizing opponent's strength as implementation vector, Integra summarized with tactical precision. Philosophical judo applied to cosmic forces. With reconfiguration complete, London's team established transformation parameters, specific arrangement corresponding to mathematical relationships transcending conventional spatial understanding. Alucard's shadow nature provided fundamental framework, Seras contributed hybrid adaptability, Integra offered structural cohesion through command presence, Yujito stabilized through Bijou-derived equilibrium. At Formation Center, Naruto initiated sequence that activated transformation potential, golden chakra flowing outward through reconfigured pathways established by shared blood. Unlike conventional energy manipulation, this implementation utilized boundary dissolution itself as functional component, incorporating destructive force into constructive application through philosophical inversion. Convergence transformation, alliance variation, he announced, completing activation sequence with precise hand movements. Dimensional reconfiguration initiates through philosophical inversion rather than oppositional force. The effect manifested immediately, matrix energy incorporating void substance from surrounding environment, darkness flowing into structured configuration rather than chaotic expansion. Throughout London's convergence zone, dimensional tiers stabilized not through reinforcement but through transformation, becoming structured pathways rather than chaotic fractures. The Herald observed this development with evident calculation, void face shifting through expression suggesting intellectual reassessment rather than emotional reaction. Its darkness interacted with transformation matrix directly, flowing into structured configuration rather than maintaining oppositional expansion. Unexpected methodology, it acknowledged, attention focusing on transformation pattern with transdimensional perception. Incorporation rather than opposition. Philosophical evolution beyond previous cycle parameters. Evolution through necessity, Naruto replied, maintaining transformation sequence while engaging philosophical exchange. Oppositional methodology proven insufficient through historical precedent. As transformation progressed, dimensional stability established through structured incorporation rather than reinforced opposition, void substance flowing into pattern configuration instead of chaotic expansion. Throughout London, physical environment stabilized gradually, architectural distortion resolving toward conventional parameters, gravitational anomalies settling into consistent application, spatial boundaries re-establishing through structured definition. Similar transformation occurred globally, Tokyo team implementing corresponding methodology against local manifestation, Germanic contingent applying equivalent approach within European convergence zone, other locations utilizing adapted variations according to specific parameters. Through blood alliance connection, understanding flowed between participants globally, tactical insights alongside philosophical implications, technical details alongside emotional comprehension. The transformation sequence progressed with unprecedented coordination across traditional boundaries, former enemies operating with unified purpose beyond historical precedent. As cosmic alignment began gradual recession from maximum convergence, transformation methodology established sustainable implementation beyond temporary containment, dimensional reconstruction rather than merely reinforced separation. Throughout global distribution, convergence points stabilized through structured incorporation rather than oppositional resistance, void substance integrated into dimensional fabric rather than merely contained behind reinforced boundaries. The herald's presence transformed accordingly, darkness flowing into structured configuration rather than expansive absorption. Its void form maintained cohesive intelligence while integrating into reconstructed dimensional framework, existence continuing through transformed parameters rather than oppositional conflict. Philosophical evolution demonstrates interesting potential, it observed, voice resonating with altered timbre as transformation affected its fundamental nature. Incorporation methodology creates symbiotic relationship rather than oppositional dynamic. Precisely, Naruto confirmed, maintaining transformation sequence while engaging philosophical dialogue. Sustainable resolution requires mutual evolution rather than conditional victory. The exchange continued as transformation progressed toward completion, bizarre philosophical negotiation amidst literal reality reconstruction. Throughout London, dimensional stability established through structured definition, physical environment returning toward conventional parameters while incorporating elements previously considered contradictory to natural existence. Similar resolution occurred globally, each convergence point experiencing unique manifestation according to local parameters yet following consistent pattern throughout distribution. Through blood alliance connection, participants shared comprehensive understanding beyond organizational boundaries, tactical implications alongside philosophical conclusions, technical details alongside emotional comprehension. As transformation sequence concluded, dimensional stability established through philosophical integration rather than oppositional containment, void substance incorporated into structured existence rather than separated through reinforced boundaries. Throughout global distribution, convergence points stabilized permanently, cosmic alignment receding without triggering subsequent deterioration as previous cycles had experienced. The herald's presence remained within reconstructed dimensional framework, intelligence preserved through transformed parameters rather than eliminated through oppositional victory. Its void form integrated into structured existence, darkness flowing according to defined pattern rather than chaotic expansion. Cycle concludes beyond established parameters, it observed, voice resonating with transformed timbre that suggested intellectual satisfaction rather than defeated resignation. Evolutionary potential established through philosophical integration rather than oppositional resolution. Evolution continues regardless of dimensional origin, Naruto agreed, completion sequence stabilizing transformation permanently. Adaptation defines existence throughout multiverse continuum. With transformation methodology successfully implemented, convergence teams transitioned toward stabilization protocols, ensuring permanent resolution rather than temporary containment as previous cycles had achieved. Throughout global distribution, Blood Alliance participants coordinated implementation details according to local parameters while maintaining unified purpose across traditional boundaries. As London's team completed stabilization sequence, Integra monitored global metrics with professional assessment, tactical mind evaluating results beyond immediate parameters. Dimensional stability establishes permanently according to transformation methodology, she reported, reviewing comprehensive data across multiple monitoring systems. Resolution exceeds previous cycle parameters considerably. Because incorporation succeeds where opposition fails, Naruto explained, completing final stabilization sequence before addressing assembled team directly. Sustainable resolution requires mutual evolution rather than conditional victory. The philosophical conclusion, practical application alongside theoretical understanding, resonated through Blood Alliance connection globally. Participants across traditional boundaries shared comprehensive comprehension beyond organizational limitations, tactical implications alongside emotional understanding, technical details alongside philosophical conclusions. As cosmic alignment receded completely, London returned toward conventional parameters, physical environment stabilizing through structured definition rather than chaotic fluctuation. Buildings resumed normal configuration, gravitational consistency re-established throughout affected areas, spatial boundaries solidified with permanent stability rather than temporary reinforcement. Similar resolution manifested globally, Tokyo experiencing structured reintegration alongside physical stabilization, European sites resolving spatial recursion through defined parameters, other locations establishing permanent equilibrium according to local dimensional characteristics. With immediate crisis resolved successfully, Blood Alliance participants transitioned toward implementation of long-term monitoring protocols, ensuring continued stability beyond immediate resolution. Through unprecedented cooperation across traditional boundaries, formerly isolated factions established sustainable methodology for maintaining dimensional equilibrium despite historical precedent. As London's convergence team gathered for post-implementation assessment, Naruto observed their dynamic with evident satisfaction, recognition of successful adaptation beyond conventional parameters. The Blood Alliance demonstrates effectiveness beyond tactical necessity, he noted, addressing assembled participants directly. Evolution through cooperation rather than merely coordinated opposition. Necessity mothers adaptation, Integra acknowledged with clinical precision. Though institutional parameters require re-evaluation given demonstrated results. Alucard's perpetual smile suggested genuine amusement rather than merely theatrical presentation. The Fox Sage implements philosophical revolution alongside dimensional transformation, he observed cryptically. Changing relationships alongside reality itself. Evolution applies equally to organizational structures and cosmic forces, Naruto replied with subtle humor. Adaptation defining survival regardless of classification. As implementation details concluded, London's team separated according to immediate responsibilities, Hellsing forces establishing monitoring protocols throughout affected areas, Alliance participants coordinating global stabilization efforts, individual factions adapting organizational parameters based on demonstrated results. Seras found herself positioned alongside Naruto during momentary operational pause, temporary isolation allowing direct conversation without broader audience. It actually worked, she observed with characteristic British understatement. Permanent solution rather than merely postponed confrontation. Evolution through necessity, Naruto acknowledged, genuine satisfaction evident beneath practiced composure. Cooperation achieving results beyond individual capability regardless of power measurement. Through blood connection, Seras received fragmentary impression behind his statement. Satisfaction regarding methodology rather than merely successful outcome, appreciation for philosophical implications alongside practical results. His perspective valued process equally with conclusion, journey alongside destination despite immortal timeframe that might reasonably prioritize results exclusively. The Blood Alliance continues despite resolution of immediate crisis, she noted, professional assessment seeking clarification regarding operational parameters. Because dimensional stability requires ongoing maintenance rather than merely initial establishment, Naruto explained. Permanent solution through continuous adaptation rather than singular implementation. The technical explanation contained philosophical implications beyond immediate application, sustainability requiring continuous evolution rather than merely achieved stability. Through blood connection, understanding transferred beyond verbal communication, conceptual framework alongside practical methodology, theoretical understanding alongside emotional comprehension. So we're stuck with vampires as permanent allies, Seras summarized with pragmatic humor. Sir Integra will be thrilled. Perspectives evolve alongside methodologies, Naruto replied with answering amusement. Classification boundaries themselves representing artificial limitation rather than fundamental reality. Their conversation paused as Integra approached with military precision, tactical assessment complete regarding immediate implementation while strategic planning proceeded for subsequent development. Hellsing acknowledges Blood Alliance effectiveness beyond organizational expectations, she stated with formal precision that nonetheless conveyed genuine concession. Operational parameters adapt accordingly despite institutional precedent. Adaptation defining organizational survival alongside tactical methodology, Naruto acknowledged, recognizing significant policy evolution behind her formal statement. Leadership demonstrating evolutionary capacity beyond conventional parameters. The subtle compliment, delivered as technical observation rather than personal flattery, earned assessing glance from Integra, whose composure revealed minimal response beyond professional focus. Through blood connection, however, Seras detected appreciation behind her commander's impassive exterior, recognition valued precisely because rarely expressed through conventional communication. As operational debriefing concluded, London's convergence team separated according to subsequent responsibilities, immediate crisis resolved successfully while long-term implementation proceeded through established protocols. Throughout global distribution, similar transition occurred as Blood Alliance participants adapted organizational parameters based on demonstrated results. Through secure communication channels, coordination continued between primary convergence points, Tokyo team reporting successful implementation alongside European contingent, other locations confirming resolution according to established parameters. The Blood Alliance maintained operational effectiveness beyond immediate necessity, evolution continuing through mutual adaptation rather than merely coordinated opposition. Cherry blossoms drifted across Tokyo University's ancient courtyard, pink petals contrasting with modern architecture surrounding traditional garden space. Stone benches positioned according to feng shui principles provided contemplative seating beneath trees older than surrounding buildings, living history alongside contemporary development. Naruto Uzumaki occupied central bench with casual grace, traditional haori over modern clothing suggesting balanced integration rather than merely juxtaposed contrast. Ancient scrolls spread across his lap contained text indecipherable to conventional linguistics, symbols shifting subtly under direct observation as though reluctant to maintain fixed form. Professor Uzumaki, came formal greeting from courtyard entrance. Your invitation specified this location specifically. Shirnoa Hiragi approached with military precision despite civilian attire, tactical awareness evident beneath casual presentation. Her demon weapon remained dormant but present, compact form disguised as decorative hairpin rather than displayed openly within university grounds. Significance beyond mere convenience, Naruto acknowledged, carefully rolling ancient scroll before gesturing toward adjacent seating. History provides context for present development. Shirnoa claimed indicated position with calculated casualness, formal etiquette preserved despite relaxed environment. Her analytical mind assessed surroundings with professional thoroughness, noting strategic positioning alongside aesthetic arrangement. The Hiragi family extends formal appreciation regarding dimensional stabilization, she stated, diplomatic courtesy delivered. With precision suggesting practice delivery. Organizational parameters adapt according to demonstrated alliance effectiveness. Formal appreciation noted alongside practical implementation, Naruto replied with answering formality. Evolution continuing through institutional adaptation rather than merely individual acknowledgement. The diplomatic exchange, necessary prelude before addressing actual purpose, proceeded with mutual recognition of organizational context alongside personal conversation. Through blood connection, understanding transferred beyond verbal communication, institutional pressures alongside individual perspective, political necessity alongside personal conviction. Your family reconsiders historical classification boundaries, Naruto observed once preliminary courtesies concluded. Evolution beyond traditional taxonomy despite institutional momentum. Demonstrated results require corresponding theoretical adjustment, Shirnoa acknowledged with professional precision. Though institutional parameters adapt gradually rather than revolutionary transformation. Evolution proceeding according to sustainable timeline, Naruto agreed. Permanent change requiring solid foundation rather than merely dramatic gesture. Their conversation continued with increasing directness as diplomatic necessities concluded, professional assessment alongside personal curiosity, organizational perspective alongside individual understanding. Through blood connection, communication proceeded beyond verbal limitations, conceptual transfer alongside emotional comprehension, theoretical understanding alongside practical methodology. The repository stabilizes permanently, Shinoa reported, transitioning toward practical matters beyond diplomatic courtesy. Dimensional fragment maintaining equilibrium through transformed parameters rather than merely reinforced separation. Expected development given implementation methodology, Naruto confirmed. Transformation succeeding where containment proved insufficient through historical precedent. As their discussion proceeded, cherry blossoms continued falling around them, natural beauty providing contemplative backdrop for conversation regarding supernatural developments. Throughout Tokyo University's ancient courtyard, students passed without recognizing significance behind apparently casual meeting between professor and visitor, contemporary life continuing alongside hidden complexities. The Blood Alliance continues despite crisis resolution, Shinoa noted, professional assessment seeking clarification regarding operational parameters. Because evolutionary potential extends beyond immediate necessity, Naruto explained. Cooperation establishing foundation for subsequent development rather than merely tactical coordination. Through blood connection, understanding transferred beyond verbal explanation, philosophical implications alongside practical application, conceptual framework alongside emotional comprehension. The alliance represented paradigm shift beyond organizational boundaries, evolution through cooperation rather than merely coordinated opposition. My family's archives contain fragmentary references to previous cycles, Shinoa continued, scholarly curiosity evident beneath professional demeanor. Though historical documentation proves inconsistent regarding specific details. Selective documentation reflecting contemporary understanding, Naruto acknowledged. History recorded according to conceptual framework available within respective era. His explanation contained philosophical depth beyond immediate application, historiographical limitations alongside factual transmission, perspective determining documentation regardless of objective reality. Through blood connection, conceptual understanding transferred alongside factual information, comprehensive framework rather than merely isolated details. You witnessed these events directly, Shinoa observed with characteristic directness. Your perspective transcending historical documentation through personal experience. Experience providing context beyond recorded details, Naruto confirmed without specific elaboration. Though perspective itself evolving alongside temporal progression. Their conversation paused as university bells signaled class transition, contemporary schedule interrupting historical discussion with mundane punctuation. Throughout surrounding campus, students moved between buildings with purposeful direction, ordinary life continuing alongside extraordinary developments without conscious awareness regarding supernatural complexities. The Hiragi family extends formal invitation, Shinoa stated once temporary distraction concluded. Advisory capacity regarding dimensional monitoring alongside historical consultation. The invitation, significant policy evolution beyond traditional parameters, demonstrated institutional adaptation following practical necessity. Through blood connection, Naruto detected multiple perspectives behind formal offer, genuine recognition alongside strategic positioning, scholarly interest alongside practical application. Invitation appreciated alongside practical implications, he acknowledged with matching formality. Cooperation continuing through institutional framework rather than merely individual arrangement. As their meeting concluded with established parameters regarding subsequent implementation, Shinoa departed with formal courtesy that nonetheless contained genuine respect beneath diplomatic protocol. Her tactical mind had reassessed classification boundaries based on demonstrated results, evolution beyond traditional taxonomy despite institutional momentum. Naruto remained seated beneath cherry trees as blossoms continued falling around him, contemplative posture suggesting philosophical consideration alongside practical assessment. Throughout Tokyo University's ancient courtyard, contemporary life proceeded without recognizing immortal presence in their midst, history personified observing present development with patient perspective. Formal invitation represents significant policy evolution, observed Yujito, materializing beside him with predatory grace that nonetheless maintained controlled presence. Institutional adaptation proceeding beyond expected parameters. Necessity driving evolution regardless of traditional boundaries, Naruto acknowledged. Adaptation defining survival for organizations alongside individuals. Their conversation continued with comfortable familiarity born from centuries' shared experience, perspectives aligned through extended association rather than merely current circumstances. Throughout Tokyo University's ancient courtyard, cherry blossoms accumulated around them, natural cycles continuing alongside supernatural developments with balanced coexistence rather than oppositional relationship. Krul Tepes' private chambers within Sanguinem combined ancient luxury with practical functionality, Gothic architecture housing modern technology alongside traditional vampire aesthetics. Massive windows overlooked Carpathian mountain range, bulletproof glass treated to filter harmful radiation while providing spectacular view impossible for humans to access without supernatural assistance. The third progenitor herself occupied antique desk with imperial bearing, diminutive stature contradicted by overwhelming presence that dominated expansive chamber despite physical proportions. Ancient documents spread before her contained information regarding dimensional stabilization alongside organizational adaptation following successful crisis resolution. Enter, she commanded without looking up as distinctive presence registered beyond ornate doorway. Your punctuality suggests characteristic consideration despite unnecessary formality. Naruto entered with respectful acknowledgement of territorial sovereignty, guest protocol observed despite power measurement that might reasonably disregard such courtesy. His traditional Haori contrasted with Chamber's Gothic aesthetic while somehow complementing overall atmosphere through balanced integration rather than merely juxtaposed opposition. Formality acknowledges relationship beyond mere power measurement, he noted, approaching with unhurried confidence that neither imposed nor submitted. Respect transcending capability comparison despite practical assessment. Krul's crimson eyes assessed him with imperial calculation, centuries of political maneuvering providing framework for evaluating unfamiliar methodology. Her expression revealed nothing beyond controlled attentiveness, though blood connection transferred emotional complexity beyond visible presentation. Sanguinem extends formal acknowledgement regarding dimensional stabilization, she stated once preliminary assessment concluded. Progenitor contribution recognized alongside practical implementation. Acknowledgement appreciated alongside continued cooperation, Naruto replied with matching formality. Evolution proceeding through mutual adaptation rather than merely recognized hierarchy. The diplomatic exchange, necessary prelude before addressing actual purpose, proceeded with mutual recognition of political context alongside personal conversation. Through blood connection, understanding transferred beyond verbal communication, institutional pressures alongside individual perspective, political necessity alongside personal conviction. Vampire society reconsiders traditional structure following alliance demonstration, Krul observed once preliminary courtesies concluded. Hierarchical parameters adapting despite institutional momentum. Evolution proceeding according to sustainable timeline, Naruto noted with evident approval. Permanent change requiring solid foundation rather than merely dramatic restructuring. Their conversation continued with increasing directness as diplomatic necessities concluded, political assessment alongside personal curiosity, organizational perspective alongside individual understanding. Through blood connection, communication proceeded beyond verbal limitations, conceptual transfer alongside emotional comprehension, theoretical understanding alongside practical application. The Blood Alliance demonstrates effectiveness beyond tactical necessity, Krul acknowledged, imperial assessment recognizing practical results regardless of traditional parameters. Cooperation achieving outcomes beyond individual capability despite significant power measurement. Adaptation defining survival regardless of classification, Naruto agreed. Evolution through necessity transcending artificial boundaries despite historical precedent. As their discussion proceeded, mountain landscape darkened toward twilight beyond massive windows, natural beauty providing dramatic backdrop for conversation regarding supernatural developments. Throughout Sanguinum's ancient chambers, vampire society continued functioning without interruption, hierarchical structure adapting gradually rather than revolutionary transformation following successful crisis resolution. Your methodology contradicts traditional vampire philosophy, Krul observed with characteristic directness. Cooperation emphasizing mutual benefit rather than dominance hierarchy despite overwhelming capability. Philosophy reflecting experience rather than merely inherited tradition, Naruto explained. Centuries demonstrating sustainability through balanced relationship rather than imposed authority. Through blood connection, conceptual understanding transferred alongside practical application, philosophical framework rather than merely tactical methodology. His perspective represented paradigm shift beyond conventional vampire thinking, evolutionary approach rather than merely power-based hierarchy despite undeniable capability measurement. The progenitor king rejects traditional title despite acknowledged origin status, Krul noted, imperial assessment seeking clarification regarding philosophical position. Title representing relationship I neither established nor maintained, Naruto replied without defensiveness. Classification reflecting others' understanding rather than personal intention. His explanation contained philosophical depth beyond immediate application, identity determined through relationship rather than merely inherent characteristics, definition requiring mutual acknowledgement rather than unilateral declaration. Through blood connection, conceptual framework transferred alongside specific perspective, comprehensive understanding rather than merely isolated position. Yet blood relationship remains undeniable despite philosophical rejection, Krul countered with imperial precision. Your genetic contribution establishing foundational reality regardless of subsequent interpretation. Relationship acknowledged alongside implementation consequences, Naruto confirmed without disputing factual assessment. Responsibility accepted despite title rejection. Their conversation paused as chamber lighting adjusted automatically, environmental systems responding to deepening twilight beyond massive windows. Throughout Sanguinum's ancient fortress, vampire society continued functioning according to established parameters, daily operations proceeding alongside extraordinary developments without disruption despite philosophical implications. Vampire society extends formal recognition, Krul stated once environmental transition completed. Progenitor status acknowledged alongside implementation authority regarding dimensional maintenance. The formal recognition, significant policy statement beyond traditional parameters, demonstrated institutional adaptation following practical necessity. Through blood connection, Naruto detected multiple perspectives behind official declaration, genuine acknowledgement alongside strategic positioning, philosophical acceptance alongside practical application. Recognition appreciated alongside practical implementation, he acknowledged with matching formality. Cooperation continuing through structured relationship rather than merely hierarchical arrangement. As their meeting progressed toward specific implementation details, Krul studied him with increasingly direct assessment, imperial calculation transitioning toward personal curiosity beyond organizational necessity. Your existence contradicts conventional understanding regarding immortality limitations, she observed, scholarly interest evident beneath imperial bearing. Longevity exceeding established parameters despite biological classification. Classification itself representing artificial limitation rather than fundamental reality, Naruto explained, philosophical perspective informed through millennia personal experience. Categories reflecting understanding attempt rather than absolute definition. Through blood connection, conceptual framework transferred alongside specific explanation, perspective developed across timescale beyond conventional comprehension, understanding evolved through direct observation rather than merely theoretical consideration. His existence represented living contradiction to established taxonomy, evolution beyond categorical limitation despite classification attempt. Loneliness accompanies extended existence regardless of philosophical perspective, Krul noted with surprising directness. Isolation transcending physical proximity despite social interaction. The observation, personal rather than imperial, emotional rather than political, demonstrated relationship evolution beyond organizational parameters. Through blood connection, emotional comprehension transferred alongside intellectual understanding, shared experience recognized despite different manifestation, similar condition acknowledged despite distinct origin. Perspective determining experience regardless of temporal measurement, Naruto replied with matching directness. Connection possibility remaining despite historical disappointment. His response contained emotional depth alongside philosophical consideration, personal vulnerability beneath composed exterior, experienced understanding rather than merely theoretical acknowledgement. Through blood connection, emotional resonance transferred beyond verbal communication, shared comprehension regarding immortality's burden alongside potential redemption through meaningful connection. Their conversation shifted toward increasingly personal territory as organizational matters concluded, individual perspective alongside institutional position, personal philosophy alongside political necessity. Throughout Sanguinum's private chambers, relationship evolved beyond formal arrangement toward genuine connection, mutual understanding developing through shared experience despite distinct origins. The blood alliance continues despite crisis resolution, Krul observed, seeking clarification regarding personal position alongside organizational arrangement. Because connection transcends immediate necessity, Naruto explained simply. Relationship maintaining value beyond tactical advantage regardless of circumstance resolution. As their meeting concluded with established parameters regarding subsequent implementation, Krul maintained imperial composure despite emotional complexity transferred through blood connection, centuries of political discipline preserving appropriate presentation regardless of personal development. Their relationship had evolved beyond formal arrangement toward genuine connection, mutual respect established through shared experience despite hierarchical potential. Naruto departed Sanguinum with balanced courtesy that acknowledged sovereignty without submitting to hierarchical arrangement, respect demonstrated through consideration rather than deference despite traditional vampire protocol. Throughout Ancient Fortress, vampire society continued adapting following crisis resolution, evolutionary development proceeding through sustainable progression rather than revolutionary transformation. London's skyline gleamed beneath moonlight as dimensional stability maintained permanent equilibrium, transformation methodology ensuring lasting resolution rather than merely temporary containment. Hellsing headquarters continued monitoring supernatural parameters throughout affected areas, organizational vigilance unchanged despite philosophical evolution regarding classification boundaries. Seras Victoria occupied rooftop observation position with professional focus, tactical assessment proceeding alongside personal contemplation. Her enhanced senses monitored surrounding environment with practiced efficiency while blood alliance connection maintained global awareness beyond geographical limitations. Beautiful night, observed familiar voice behind her, calm, measured, carrying quiet confidence without imposing presence unnecessarily. Professor Uzumaki, Seras acknowledged without turning, vampire senses having detected his approach long before verbal greeting. Or should I use your actual title now that vampire society formally recognized your status? Names representing relationship rather than merely hierarchical classification, Naruto replied, joining her at rooftop edge with casual grace that belied immortal timeframe behind fluid movement. Naruto remained sufficient regardless of formal designation. They stood together overlooking London's transformed skyline, dimensional stability visible to enhanced perception as subtle luminescence where reality had fractured during convergence crisis. Throughout metropolitan expanse, human life continued without recognizing supernatural developments that had preserved their existence, ordinary patterns maintained alongside extraordinary intervention. Hellsing maintains monitoring protocols despite crisis resolution, Seras reported professionally before conversation shifted toward personal territory. Organizational vigilance unchanged despite philosophical reconsideration regarding classification boundaries. Expected implementation given institutional parameters, Naruto acknowledged. Evolution proceeding through sustainable progression rather than revolutionary transformation. Their conversation continued with increasing directness as professional courtesy concluded, individual perspective alongside organizational position, personal philosophy alongside institutional responsibility. Through blood connection, communication proceeded beyond verbal limitations, emotional comprehension alongside intellectual understanding, conceptual transfer alongside specific information. Sir Integra formally acknowledges Blood Alliance effectiveness despite institutional reservation, Seras noted with characteristic British understatement. Quite revolutionary considering Hellsing's foundational purpose. Adaptation defining organizational survival alongside tactical methodology, Naruto observed with evident appreciation. Leadership demonstrating evolutionary capacity beyond conventional parameters. As their discussion proceeded, London's nightlife continued beneath them, ordinary citizens enjoying evening activities without recognizing supernatural guardians ensuring their continued existence. Throughout metropolitan expanse, dimensional stability maintained perfect equilibrium, transformation methodology preventing subsequent deterioration through structured integration rather than merely reinforced separation. "You're leaving London," Seras stated rather than asked, blood connection transferring intention alongside conversational context. Continuing somewhere beyond immediate implementation necessity. Monitoring requirements extending globally despite successful resolution, Naruto confirmed without elaboration regarding specific destination. Responsibility continuing alongside acknowledged relationship regardless of crisis conclusion. Through blood connection, understanding transferred beyond verbal explanation, philosophical commitment alongside practical necessity, personal responsibility alongside organizational function. His continued involvement represented voluntary dedication rather than merely obligated service, purpose maintained through internal conviction rather than external requirement. The Blood Alliance continues despite geographical separation, Seras noted, seeking clarification regarding ongoing connection alongside physical departure. Distance representing spatial measurement rather than relationship limitation, Naruto explained with philosophical precision. Connection maintained through established bond regardless of physical proximity. His explanation contained emotional depth alongside technical accuracy, personal commitment alongside practical functionality, genuine connection rather than merely operational necessity. Through blood connection, emotional resonance transferred beyond verbal communication, shared understanding regarding ongoing relationship despite geographical separation. "You've done this before," Seras observed with characteristic directness. Formed connections knowing temporal disparity ensures outliving those relationships eventually. The observation, personal rather than professional, emotional rather than tactical, demonstrated relationship evolution beyond organizational parameters. Through blood connection, emotional comprehension transferred alongside intellectual understanding, genuine concern recognized rather than merely curious inquiry, compassionate consideration rather than merely analytical assessment. Temporal limitation affecting experience quality rather than relationship validity, Naruto replied with matching directness. Connection value transcending duration measurement regardless of inevitable conclusion. His response contained emotional vulnerability alongside philosophical consideration, genuine perspective rather than merely diplomatic courtesy, experienced wisdom rather than theoretical postulation. Through blood connection, emotional authenticity transferred beyond verbal communication, ancient loneliness alongside determined optimism, experienced loss alongside continued openness despite repeated heartbreak throughout immortal timeframe. Their conversation shifted toward increasingly personal territory as professional matters concluded, individual perspective alongside organizational position, emotional consideration alongside tactical assessment. Throughout London's moonlit skyline, relationship evolved beyond formal arrangement toward genuine connection, mutual understanding developing through shared experience despite distinct origins. "Will we see you again?" Seras asked finally, direct question containing emotional complexity beyond simple inquiry. Relationship continuing beyond physical proximity, Naruto assured her with genuine warmth beneath composed exterior. Connection maintained through established bond regardless of geographical separation. As moonlight illuminated London beneath them, their conversation concluded with established understanding regarding continued relationship despite necessary departure, connection maintained through blood alliance regardless of physical distance. Throughout metropolitan expanse, dimensional stability preserved ordinary existence alongside extraordinary development, human life continuing without disruption despite supernatural intervention ensuring their continued survival. Michaela Hayakuya approached Tokyo's coastal overlook with cautious vigilance, tactical awareness assessing environmental parameters despite apparent solitude at isolated viewpoint. Moonlight reflected across Tokyo Bay with ethereal brilliance, urban illumination creating second skyline beneath watery surface where metropolis mirrored itself through natural reflection. Her enhanced senses detected presence before visual confirmation, distinctive energy signature registering through supernatural awareness beyond conventional perception. Ancient power maintained deliberately subdued projection, consideration rather than concealment, respect rather than deception. You requested this meeting specifically, she stated without preamble once reaching viewpoint's edge. Location suggesting significance beyond mere convenience. Significance through natural beauty rather than tactical advantage, Naruto acknowledged from seated position overlooking spectacular vista. Perspective benefiting from environmental context regardless of conversational content. Michaela maintained standing position with instinctive vigilance, centuries of survival conditioning preserving defensive awareness despite intellectual recognition regarding absent threat. Her unique status as Seraph vampire hybrid created persistent caution regardless of rational assessment, evolutionary adaptation through necessity rather than merely personal preference. The Germanic bloodline extends formal appreciation regarding dimensional stabilization, she stated with practiced diplomacy suggesting recent political education rather than natural inclination. Lord Wilhelm acknowledges blood alliance effectiveness despite traditional reservation. Appreciation noted alongside practical implementation, Naruto replied with matching formality. Cooperation continuing through institutional framework despite historical separation. The diplomatic exchange, necessary prelude before addressing actual purpose, proceeded with mutual recognition of organizational context alongside personal conversation. Through blood connection, understanding transferred beyond verbal communication, institutional pressures alongside individual perspective, political necessity alongside personal conviction. Your blood recognizes mine beyond conventional classification parameters, Michaela observed once preliminary courtesies concluded. Connection transcending taxonomical boundaries despite distinct origin points. Classification representing understanding attempt rather than absolute definition, Naruto explained with philosophical precision. Categories reflecting perception limitation rather than fundamental reality. Their conversation continued with increasing directness as diplomatic necessities concluded, personal curiosity alongside professional assessment, individual understanding alongside organizational perspective. Through blood connection, communication proceeded beyond verbal limitations, conceptual transfer alongside emotional comprehension, theoretical understanding alongside practical application. Seraph modifications interact with your blood components beyond researcher expectation, Michaela noted, scientific observation alongside personal experience. Connection establishing despite apparent contradictory parameters. Compatibility transcending superficial classification, Naruto confirmed with evident satisfaction regarding demonstrated integration. Fundamental harmony beneath apparent contradiction despite categorical separation. As their discussion proceeded, Tokyo Bay reflected moonlight with hypnotic rhythm, gentle waves creating dynamic illumination patterns across watery surface. Throughout coastal overlook, natural beauty provided contemplative backdrop for conversation regarding supernatural developments, ordinary aesthetics alongside extraordinary discussion with balanced coexistence rather than jarring juxtaposition. The human researchers who created Seraph modifications sought weapons against vampire kind, Michaela continued, personal history informing scientific observation. Ironic considering demonstrated compatibility with progenitor blood specifically. Irony reflecting limited understanding rather than fundamental contradiction, Naruto observed with philosophical perspective informed through millennia experience. Researchers manipulating principles beyond their comprehension despite technical capability. Through blood connection, conceptual framework transferred alongside specific explanation, comprehensive understanding rather than merely isolated details. The Seraph program represented rediscovery of ancient principles without contextual comprehension, technical implementation without philosophical foundation, application without understanding regarding fundamental dynamics. Your blood contains memories beyond conscious access, Michaela stated with characteristic directness. Impressions transferring through connection despite deliberate withholding. The observation, direct challenge rather than diplomatic inquiry, demonstrated personal assertiveness beyond organizational representation. Through blood connection, emotional authenticity transferred alongside intellectual assessment, genuine curiosity rather than merely political positioning, personal interest beyond merely professional responsibility. Blood remembering experience beyond conscious categorization, Naruto acknowledged without defensiveness. Connection transferring understanding alongside specific information regardless of deliberate limitation. His explanation contained philosophical depth beyond immediate application, memory transcending conscious organization, understanding flowing through biological connection regardless of intellectual categorization. Through blood connection, conceptual framework transferred alongside specific perspective, comprehensive understanding rather than merely isolated position. You recognized what I am immediately, Michaela continued, personal vulnerability evident beneath composed exterior. Beyond superficial classification into something more fundamental. Recognition through similar experience despite different manifestation, Naruto confirmed with genuine warmth beneath calm demeanor. Container significance transcending content classification regardless of specific implementation. Their conversation paused as distant ship moved across Tokyo Bay, ordinary human activity providing momentary focus shift alongside supernatural discussion. Throughout coastal overlook, natural environment continued normal patterns alongside extraordinary conversation, contextual backdrop providing perspective regarding existence beyond immediate topic. The blood alliance continues despite crisis resolution, Michaela observed, seeking clarification regarding ongoing connection alongside functional purpose. Because relationship value transcends immediate necessity, Naruto explained simply. Connection maintaining significance beyond tactical advantage regardless of circumstance resolution. As moonlight illuminated Tokyo Bay beneath them, their conversation shifted toward implementation details regarding continued cooperation, practical application alongside philosophical understanding, specific methodology alongside conceptual framework. Throughout metropolitan expanse visible from coastal overlook, dimensional stability preserved ordinary existence alongside extraordinary development, human life continuing without disruption despite supernatural intervention ensuring their continued survival. Cherry blossoms drifted across Tokyo University's traditional garden as spring sunlight illuminated ancient courtyard with gentle radiance. Stone pathways wound between carefully maintained vegetation, centuries-old design creating contemplative environment where natural beauty enhanced scholarly atmosphere rather than merely decorative addition. Professor Uzumaki occupied central bench beneath oldest cherry tree, academic materials spread beside him while students gathered around with attentive interest beyond standard classroom participation. His teaching methodology combined traditional lecture with interactive dialogue, knowledge transfer through engaged conversation rather than merely unidirectional presentation. The convergence theory suggests cyclical pattern recognition. Rather than merely isolated incidents, he explained, addressing graduate seminar regarding historical pattern analysis. Implementation requiring perspective beyond conventional timeframe despite documentary limitations. Students responded with thoughtful consideration, genuine intellectual engagement rather than merely grade-motivated participation. Throughout university courtyard, academic pursuit continued alongside hidden complexities, ordinary education proceeding without recognizing extraordinary background informing seemingly conventional lecture topics. As seminar concluded with assigned research parameters, students departed with continued discussion amongst themselves, intellectual stimulation extending beyond formal classroom environment. Throughout Tokyo University's ancient grounds, educational process continued unchanged despite extraordinary developments beneath conventional awareness, human pursuit of knowledge proceeding alongside supernatural reality without conscious recognition regarding parallel existence. Interesting lecture topic considering recent events, observed Yujito, approaching with casual grace once students departed beyond conversational range. Academic exploration alongside practical implementation within simultaneous timeframe. Theory informing practice while experience enhances understanding, Naruto acknowledged, gathering academic materials with practiced efficiency. Knowledge transfer through multiple methodologies regardless of audience classification. Their conversation continued with comfortable familiarity born from centuries shared experience, perspectives aligned through extended association rather than merely current circumstances. Throughout Tokyo University's traditional garden, cherry blossoms continued falling around them, natural cycles proceeding alongside supernatural developments with balanced coexistence. The Blood Alliance maintains stability despite geographical distribution, Yujito reported, updating regarding ongoing implementation alongside philosophical observation. Connection strengthening through continued application regardless of physical separation. Expected development given implementation methodology, Naruto confirmed with evident satisfaction. Relationship quality transcending proximity limitation despite spatial distribution. As their discussion proceeded toward specific details regarding global monitoring protocols, familiar presence approached courtyard entrance, distinctive energy signature registering through supernatural awareness beyond conventional perception. Krul Tepes entered academic environment with imperial bearing, diminutive stature contradicted by overwhelming presence that nonetheless maintained controlled projection within public setting. Her appearance had adapted for daylight interaction, specialized protection allowing limited sunlight exposure despite vampire vulnerability, physical modifications permitting human environment navigation regardless of supernatural limitations. Professor Uzumaki, she greeted with formal courtesy that nonetheless contained genuine warmth beneath imperial presentation. Your academic schedule concludes according to provided information. Schedule accuracy reflecting consideration regarding time management, Naruto acknowledged, welcoming her presence with balanced respect that neither imposed nor submitted despite established relationship. Visitation coinciding with availability window despite organizational responsibilities. Yujito departed with subtle acknowledgement, privacy provision through tactical withdrawal rather than merely coincidental departure. Throughout Tokyo University's traditional garden, ordinary activities continued without recognizing extraordinary gathering within their midst, human education proceeding alongside supernatural convergence without conscious awareness regarding parallel developments. Dimensional stability maintains perfect equilibrium across global distribution, Krul reported once privacy established through conversational isolation despite public setting. Transformation methodology demonstrating permanent effectiveness beyond projection parameters. Expected outcome given implementation approach, Naruto confirmed with genuine satisfaction regarding successful resolution. Incorporation succeeding where opposition proved insufficient despite historical precedent. Their conversation continued with increasing directness as preliminary reports concluded, personal interaction alongside professional assessment, individual connection alongside organizational function. Through Blood Alliance, communication proceeded beyond verbal limitations, emotional comprehension alongside intellectual understanding, conceptual transfer alongside specific information. As their discussion progressed, additional presence approached courtyard entrance, distinctive energy signature registering through supernatural awareness before visual confirmation. Seras Victoria entered academic environment with professional composure that nonetheless contained casual confidence beneath formal presentation, Hellsing operative maintaining balanced demeanor within public setting despite supernatural nature. Professor, she greeted with characteristic British understatement. Sir Integra sends regards alongside official communication regarding continued cooperation parameters. Communication appreciated alongside personal greeting, Naruto acknowledged, welcoming her presence with genuine warmth beyond professional courtesy. Cooperation continuing through established framework despite geographical separation. Their interaction proceeded with increasing comfort as professional requirements concluded, personal conversation alongside organizational function, individual connection alongside institutional responsibility. Throughout Tokyo University's traditional garden, cherry blossoms continued falling around them, natural beauty providing contemplative backdrop for supernatural gathering within seemingly ordinary academic setting. Further presence registered through enhanced perception, distinctive energy signatures approaching courtyard entrance with varied manifestation according to individual characteristics. Shinoa Hiragi arrived with professional composure alongside tactical awareness, Demon Hunter maintaining balanced presentation within public environment despite specialized abilities. Michaela followed with cautious vigilance that nonetheless contained controlled confidence, Seraph Vampire hybrid navigating daylight setting through specialized adaptation despite supernatural limitations. The convergence completes beyond geographical parameters, Naruto observed as gathering assembled fully within traditional garden setting. Alliance representation transcending organizational boundaries. Despite distinct origins. Evolution through necessity rather than merely tactical coordination, Krul acknowledged with imperial assessment recognizing philosophical implications alongside practical application. Adaptation continuing despite crisis resolution. The gathering proceeded with balanced interaction, organizational representation alongside personal connection, professional assessment alongside individual relationship. Through blood alliance, communication flowed beyond conventional limitations, understanding transferring across traditional boundaries despite distinct origins, cooperation continuing through established connection regardless of separate responsibilities. As Tokyo's spring sunlight illuminated ancient courtyard where extraordinary gathering assembled within seemingly ordinary setting, Naruto observed their interaction with genuine satisfaction, recognition regarding successful evolution beyond conventional parameters despite historical separation. The blood alliance had transformed beyond tactical necessity toward genuine connection, relationship continuing through established bond regardless of crisis resolution. Throughout global distribution, dimensional stability maintained perfect equilibrium alongside supernatural cooperation, transformation methodology ensuring permanent resolution while alliance framework preserved continued development. Evolution proceeded through mutual adaptation rather than merely coordinated opposition, incorporation succeeding where separation had failed despite historical precedent. Throughout supernatural world, traditional boundaries reconfigured through demonstrated effectiveness, classification categories evolving beyond conventional limitations despite institutional momentum. The Progenitor King had emerged from centuries of shadows not to dominate but to connect, leadership demonstrated through mutual respect rather than imposed authority despite overwhelming capability. Throughout vampire society, hierarchical structure adapted accordingly, evolutionary development proceeding through philosophical reconsideration alongside practical implementation. As cherry blossoms continued falling around their extraordinary gathering, Naruto recognized completion beyond cyclical parameters, resolution transcending historical precedent despite eternal adversary. Throughout his immortal existence, purpose had maintained through continuous adaptation rather than rigid consistency, evolution defining survival regardless of temporal measurement. The convergence had completed beyond dimensional parameters, bringing together disparate elements into harmonious whole despite apparent contradiction. Throughout supernatural world, balance established through incorporation rather than separation, transformation succeeding where opposition had failed throughout previous cycles. The Blood King had returned from history's shadows not to rule but to protect, ancient sage whose power remained secondary to compassion despite overwhelming capability. Throughout supernatural world, his leadership established through demonstrated wisdom rather than merely acknowledged power, influence flowing through respect earned rather than dominance imposed. As Tokyo's academic garden hosted their extraordinary gathering beneath falling cherry blossoms, Naruto acknowledged completion beyond individual expectation, connection established through mutual evolution despite distinct origins. Throughout his immortal journey, purpose continued through meaningful relationship regardless of inevitable conclusion, value transcending temporal limitation despite eternal timeframe. The convergence of fate had brought together what artificial boundaries had separated, unity established through philosophical integration rather than merely tactical coordination. Throughout supernatural world, evolution continued beyond crisis resolution, adaptation defining existence regardless of dimensional origin. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.